That's a good way to put it, man.
It is a trip living the dream in someone else's nightmare.
Yeah, dude, it definitely is more of a trip now than it has been in a long time. I don't know if that's good or bad.
You know what's
What's
a
going
oh, you know what I'm gonna do,
on?
Matthew? I am going to fix your
Nice.
name down at the bottom. Tell me what's your Instagram, letter by letter?
It is just at MATTBEAUDREAU.
I got that right.
Far too long of a name. Yes, you did.
I was so happy when Mark Bell asked you how to say your name.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Now I don't have to do that.
That's hilarious. Yeah, dude.
That
I
is
never.
so good.
I always tell you, I never know. When I
How
France
did
or
your
can't.
dad say it? You told him Matthew Beaudreau.
Yeah, they say Beaudreau. That's how I grew up, but we California'd it up, man. I was born and raised out here. I go speak in Canada or France, or they say it all French, and it sounds way cooler. But
Yeah, how do they say it?
oh, dude, I can't even. I'd have to French it up. It's like Beaudreau,
I like
Beaudreau.
my name in Armenian is Matosyan,
Okay,
and
yeah.
my last name Matosyan, and then just the way I tell, just like the dude at the
Matosian.
sports club, yeah,
Yeah,
Matosyan. What's
exactly,
your
dude.
name, Sevan
Yeah,
Matosyan?
yeah. It makes it clear how much lazier we are in America, I think.
When people say my name, it exposes all the racism in people. I love it. Like I tell a Mexican, there are a lot of Mexicans a lot of Mexicans where you live too. Hey,
Yeah,
what's your name? Sevan. Oh, Esteban. Nice to meet you. Oh,
Esteban.
you
Yeah.
racist motherfucker. I just think you racist. And black people have no problem saying it because they got made up names like mine too.
Yeah,
Their
just a bunch
parents
of
just make
bullshit.
shit up. Yeah. And white people they expose their race and they can't fucking Savan.
That's so
Savan.
funny,
The
dude.
fuck is wrong with you?
That's awesome.
Savan.
Yeah,
So I just
it's
like it. I just think everyone's just horribly racist when they say my name. I expose their bias, their
it's
racist
so funny,
cultural
dude.
bias.
I wonder if your parents are hooking you up like that from the beginning on purpose, man. Good for them.
No.
Oh, that's awesome.
I went to Armenia and this guy's like, why did your parents name you Sevan? I go, what's an Armenian name? They're like, yeah, but no one here has that name. It's a lake. I was like, oh.
Oh, got it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. It's like
That's
naming your
awesome.
kid Tahoe.
The top. Fuck. I wish we had gotten all these ideas out before I had kids, dude.
When you came on my radar, I was super interested in you because of your and feel free to change any of my words, is just my observation, but your obsession, your dedication to kids,
Mm-hmm.
and to making sure that they were, in my terms, capable in the universe, like super duper capable. You
Yeah.
wanted to make capable human beings.
Yeah.
And then as I started researching you, before I jumped on the podcast last night, as I'm culling through all the stuff, it's crazy how much stuff you've done. I had no idea you had a fighting background. That's a trip.
Yeah. It feels like a past life, It was just yesterday, but it was also a whole nother life ago, man. So, but I mean, obviously super grateful. It's one of those things you look back and there's so many growth opportunities coming from that, and so much you learn, mostly about myself, right? And I think you have a lot of guys that'll fight and say the same kind of thing, but so many lessons I learned about myself. The network part of that has been great, and being able to stay in contact with those guys, man. But yeah, that whole experience, man, a big part of my upbringing altogether. Very much so.
I was talking with the producer of the show, and I was Matt Souza,
Yeah.
and I was telling him that I think that we get the level of people on the podcast based on my insecurities, based on my lack of belief in myself. And then when I looked at who you've had on your podcast, I started tripping. It started giving me like fucking crazy anxiety because like I can't get those people because I can't ask those people because I don't believe in myself enough.
Why?
Are you following me?
Yeah, I do follow you, but why?
Because
Like
they're adults.
you're,
Because they're
but
adults. They're
yeah,
smart.
man.
They're
Yeah,
adults.
yeah,
You
and
had Jordan Peterson's daughter, Seth Godin, Mark Bell. I'm going way out. Like having you on is freaking me out. Like you run schools.
man,
Like I see you as like the principal. Gary V, Tony Blauer, Patrick Bet David, Dennis Prager. like I would have to fucking put on a diaper. Dave Rubin, Charlie Kirk.
Well, see, and that's what
Charlie
I could.
Kirk's like what do you just why didn't you just invite a brain onto your show?
That's the whole dude. Him, Ben Greenfield, and I'm not saying that to add more names. I'm just saying that
Tim Kennedy, Rogan Hadley,
every one of these dudes.
Bedros Kalian. I'm just like, what the fuck is this guy fucking nuts? You're either extremely naive or you have a ton of self-confidence.
Both, I'm sure.
I'm headed straight to I think the only way I can do it is if I even double down on the naiveness.
It's I'm going both, man. I'm probably self-confident because I'm ultra naive. I don't know which one comes first in that, but the reality is you are absolutely right there. I just get to sit back and listen to brilliant people like you, and you can name all those names, and they're all freaking rad humans, and they were amazing to sit and talk to and learn from. And it was just as much fun to sit down and talk to you and learn from you. I was genuinely sad because I remember very clearly having you on, and I had somebody that was coming to camp that was driving multiple hours. It was a buddy of mine from college, was driving multiple hours to come here because he wanted me to help him start a school like this up where he is. And so he and his wife were coming down, and they were going to spend a few hours here. And I was genuinely sad that we had to, we almost kind of cut our episode short, man, because I was just having a great time listening to you, connecting with you, and learning from you. So you're right there. You're right there in that same boat, man. Make no mistake.
You have 3 kids?
Yes, sir.
And you have 3 schools?
Yes, sir. Currently.
And your schools, when I say you have 3 schools, are you the principal at those schools, or am I projecting a paradigm that doesn't even fit? Do your schools even have principals?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. We don't have principals. I'm the founder, I'm the owner, but no, we don't have principals. The quickest way to shift the paradigm for everybody is I tell everybody that our ideal day on any one of our campuses is that the adults don't even show up. The students don't notice, and it doesn't matter because nothing changes. And when I say nothing changes, I don't mean, oh, okay, well, then your schools are a bunch of kids running around batshit crazy, Lord of the Flies. And of course, it doesn't matter if the adults are there. What I mean is the adults don't have to be there, and it still runs like a Fortune 500 company. And that's a very different thing. One of the first things you said, was kind of my obsession with making young people capable. And I think the only thing I would change on that is my obsession is reminding humanity that young people are capable, right? That's a different thing, because we have been trained not to trust children, which is turned into a bunch of shitty adults that raise children that sometimes, yeah, maybe I guess you can't trust them, but if you can't trust them, it's because you can't trust the adult that raised them usually. So it's a reminder that we are entirely capable of so much more. And so that's the kind of responsibility that we are projecting on our kids. So we don't need, a principal. Our whole goal is to turn everything over to the young heroes as quickly as humanly possible. Easier said than done. And as a process, and there's systems involved. But when it takes root, holy shit, man. It is like nothing you've ever seen. It really isn't.
Could I ask you to, are you on a computer?
Yeah.
Is it a laptop?
No, sir. It's a desktop.
Can you push it back a little bit?
Yeah.
Your head is being cropped. No, you don't have to go back. Can you push your computer back?
But
I don't want to lose your audio. Or maybe tilt the screen up a little bit so we get a little more of your head. It's not bad. I'm just.
Oh, it's
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
it's the tilt.
And what's the name of the schools?
So we are part of a global network, and I definitely would want to mention that too. But we are Acton Academy, Acton. A lot of people say action, but there's no I in there. So Acton Academy. The ones I own are it's Acton Academy Placer, Placer, which everybody says Placer if you're not from California. Placer is just the name of the county that we're in. And so, like you said, we have 3 campuses here. I will need to open more here in California. But I'm also part of the governance council for our entire movement, kind of our entire network. And we are opening as many campuses as we can globally. And when I say as many as we can, I mean, and doing it right. There are applications in right now, I think 18,000 applications in of people that want to open these. We're going through a hardcore filter.
Did you say 17,000?
Yeah. it's bananas. It's bananas because people know
If you went through an application every single day, you couldn't get through them all in
there's an
50
entire team.
years.
There's an entire team. Well, it's
That's
like everything
51
else you do,
years
right?
at
And it's
one a
like,
day.
well, good, dude. Look at that. Look at that, man. Charlie Kirk, who?
I have amazing third grade
Charlie
math
Kirk,
skills. I have
who?
amazing third grade math skills.
Yeah, man.
3 times 17. I mean, it's just
51,
hardwired.
bam, done.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah. So, but there's a team, and it's easy enough to, there are some things that are easy enough to filter out, right? But we're looking for the best of the best of the best, and that's why if we know phenomenal, so Tim Kennedy, right? And I went to him, and as we're building out Apogee in our program, and he's learning about these schools, and he's going, dude, I need to do this. Like, I need to do this. So I just got on the phone and said, hey, there's a guy, Tim Kennedy. He's got his application in the pipeline. Find it and move it forward. Like, done deal today. Like, let's go. Cause that's a guy that we need in the front. So, but yeah, man, it's a great movement.
When I say that Matthew was involved in fighting, he wasn't just involved in just any fighting. Like you were working with Ken Shamrock for your 9 fights, right?
Yeah, Frank mostly, actually, but
Frank?
I worked with Ken as well. Yeah, so I grew up. It's kind of a funny. My dad, wanted me to be an athlete. My dad was a wrestler. My dad was a pretty hard, just kind of a hard fellow in general. And I remember
he hit you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Is that what you mean by hard? Like he drank and hit you? Is that what hard means?
My dad's never had a touch of alcohol in his life.
Wow, sober hitting.
Yeah, sober asshole.
Impressive.
Yeah, he's
totally impressive.
So he grew up getting beat up a little bit, and he just kind of had that temper. He looked like Rocky. He looked like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky IV, right?
Okay.
When he was training to fight the Russian, like he kind of looked like that, face wise, build wise. He was just a kind of a hard ass dude. Worked in law enforcement, worked in the prison system here in California, but should have lived there, kind of guy.
You kind of are, right? That's a whole nother subject. But
yeah,
if you watch, it's the same thing. Like if you kill people, now you are also a killer. Like don't forget that.
Yep.
If you work in the prison, if you're holding people guard, you are now also a prisoner. I know people struggle with that.
For sure, man. And a lot of those guys that gravitate towards that, I find kind of naturally ride that line, right? And then that whole, adage, if you look too, long into the abyss, you become that monster. And I think that was true for definitely was true for him and for his buddies. So
you are the 5 people you hang out with the most.
That's right, man. And
we're just mirrors here.
When you're hanging out with Charlie Manson and a bunch of hoods, I mean, that was
he at San Quentin? Was he at San
Quentin? He was at San Quentin Alder in the 80s. Yep.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, man. At San Quentin Alder in the 80s. And so, and then went to a different prison in the 90s, a different prison his last 10 years. So 30 years in that. So,
my wife taught yoga at San Quentin.
No way.
Crazy, right?
To the inmates or to the guards?
Yeah, to the same.
Yeah,
no,
same
to the inmates. But I just think it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. San Quentin.
Man.
For people who don't know, I don't know if it's big worldwide, but in the Bay Area, in San Francisco and in California, San Quentin, everyone knows San Quentin.
Yeah, man. That's where
you drive across to. Yeah.
And in the 80s too, I mean, it was more of a some of the stories, dude, that came out of there. It was like the Wild West, right? It wasn't as there's so much more regulation now. There are so much more inmate rights now, right? It's like they can do, I mean, they really have carte blanche on what they can do, medical procedures, but like whatever, right? In the 80s, it was nope. And so there was a whole lot of other stuff going on where it was like the guards would be like, hey, is anybody looking? Cool. Open my cell. I'm going to go in and fuck this guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a whole lot of crazy shit going down. So he's he's this kind of rough dude. And
is he alive?
He is. Yeah.
Okay.
He is. Lives in Georgia.
Okay.
And so, I'm this youngster and he's kind of pushing and prodding, wants me to play sports. I didn't really have any sports that were really like kind of, getting me excited other than, I had some of the Bruce Lee movies and shit like that. And I was getting a little bit excited about some of the martial arts stuff, but I actually asked to go play basketball. He's like, I'm a 5'9" white dude. Like, you got no chance of, basketball being a thing. I'm like, oh no, I think that's what I want to do. So he signs me up for this camp as I'm a little kid, and I walk in with my basketball and some kid runs over and snatches it from me. And I start crying and just bawling my eyes out. My dad's like, cool, man, you're going to either suck it up and go back in, or I've got a different sport for you tomorrow. I'm like, fuck, this basketball thing sucks. Like, these guys are mean. And so he took me to go start kind of kickboxing the next day. And
basketball's too hard, so I didn't.
Yeah. So
my kid wants to do basketball pretty bad.
Yeah.
He has no chance of being over 5'5", but I mean, I'm going to
Yeah.
let him do it, but
Yeah. Give it a go. Yeah. Might as well. So yeah, so martial arts started early, man. So I actually did taekwondo and kickboxing growing up. And then yeah, I was 20, 21, about to graduate from college, and I saw these dudes grappling, and that's what first introduced me to mixed martial arts at kind of the early heyday of that. And so ended up having 9 fights and working with Frank for most of it, and got invited to be part of the Lions then with Ken. As they were moving to, there was this league coming up called the IFL, and he was going to have a team out of Reno, and I went and fought on one of his promotions, and he asked me to come try out for the Lions then and stuff too. So yeah, it was a cool experience, man. Cool few years.
you were telling a story about how you were in the car with your dad,
Mm.
and there were these two boys who were picking on you at school,
Mm-hmm.
and your dad knew about it, and they were bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you
Mm-hmm.
tell the story that your dad says, "Are those the boys?" And you say, "Yeah," and he stops the car and tells you to get out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's some pretty cinematic shit. And then the story stopped. Some like like any great podcast host,
Mm-hmm.
Mark Bell is, you able to go anywhere, and that story stopped and you went to a different story. Did you get, so for me, can you tell me what happened after that?
Yeah.
Is that a good way to raise your kids? Like to, Greg Glassman had something similar like that. I'll tell you after you tell your story. It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy having your
Yeah.
dad tell you. I can't imagine my dad telling me to go hit someone.
To get out and go fight. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I have no
don't.
judgment on it. I don't know how to
Yeah.
process it. I get scared hearing the story.
Yeah, I'm
But
all for battling the dragons, man, and getting your kids, uncomfortable. And I don't think that that's necessarily the lesson that needs to be learned, or how to go about that. I see. I'm grateful for him. I mean, we don't talk at all, but I'm grateful for him, and I'm
is
grateful
that
for
your fault or his
yeah,
fault?
our fault.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's mutual.
You
Um,
passed. I was trying to fuck you up.
yeah, yeah.
Good move. Good
Yeah,
move.
no, it's definitely ours. It's definitely a mutual decision, different reasoning, I think, but mutual decision. Um,
He doesn't like your mustache. You don't like his beard.
he does do. He wishes he had multicolors. You know, he's he's a monochromatic bearded guy, and I got a couple different things going on. Whatever the hell's going on this.
So he tells you to get out of the car, and do you
Yeah.
get out and do it? Is it
Mhm.
get hit by him, or take your chances with those guys? Are those the options?
That's kind of where my head goes. At that time I was I think I was 9. I was in fourth grade. I was in fourth grade. Those two guys were in fifth. One guy was named I still remember. I mean, one guy was named Jesse, and the other one was named High. So I don't know where they are today, but I hope they're okay. And so yeah, it was like get out and go, man. And so Jesse was first, and he just happened to be closest, and so I just ran. I mean, they didn't know. I mean, they were 10, 11. They didn't know what
Right.
was going on. They knew who I was and knew what was happening, but it was weird for them too. So I got out, hit, and I remember hitting Jesse, and then I just remember all three of us kind of on the ground, and on top of each other. And then my dad, pulled me out, and he yells at those guys, and they, were like, "What the fuck just happened?" And so there was no serious injuries. It wasn't this long lasting squabble. It was just more a matter of him being like, "Man, get out and do this." So got out and did it, and then
Did
got
you
back
did
in.
you did it did you learn anything? Were you like, oh, that wasn't so bad? Or like did
Um,
it help you? Or like did you go home and cry and be like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have hit that kid? Or was it more like, oh, that was, I mean, what was
you
your
know,
reflection on that?
yeah, I wish I could say, if I'm completely honest, that was just one of those. It was just like another thing. As a young
Oh,
kid, where I'm like, okay, all right, I know there's a lesson there, I guess, but I really don't like dad that much. And he makes me do crazy shit. You know what I mean? And
right.
so it wasn't anything that I could really reflect on until I was older.
It had
And there
nothing to
was
do with those kids. It was you. Everything was about managing you and your dad's relationship and surviving,
100%,
trying to
man.
survive.
That's it. And so when I did finally reflect on it, whenever that was, as I was older, it was really just more of a reflection on his mindset and how interesting that was to me. You know what I mean? I mean, I really do. Uh, I don't harbor any ill will towards him, even though I don't necessarily like him as an individual. I really don't harbor any ill will, and I'm very grateful for the lessons I got. And I really think that there is for whatever psychosomatic way you want to look at it, I think that's a big reason that I am the dad that I am, that I'm, driven the way that I am is a lot of it is, he became kind of this anti-hero, and he had a lot of good qualities too. I don't want to miss that, but he became kind of the anti-hero for this is who I definitely don't want to be. And so I kind of took a hard turn going the other way in a lot of ways.
I'm going through some shit right now with my parents. They're not going well, I don't know if they're going through it, but I'm going through it because as I was raised with these like heroes, you know, like the Dianne Feinsteins and the Gavin Newsoms and all of these people who are now jeopardizing my kids' actual existence in my life. And I was raised to like not with a very in the Bay Area with a very subtle dislike for country, hatred towards Republicans, lie at any cost to maintain the narrative. I was basically just lied to for 40 years about what it means to be a Democrat. I thought a Democrat was you're a tree hugger. All you want is peace and love, honesty, integrity above everything.
Yeah.
And I realized it's actually.
Do you think, is that what it was though? Was that, you know, for a while, maybe that's what it was?
Maybe.
You know, I kind of tend to, because I get that, man. I tend to see, as I'm looking at an older, you know, the older population that still considers themselves, we've always been Democrat, we're a hardcore Democrat, at least in my circle. I mean, it used to be just it used to be that it was more that, and really kind of this love is more what I guess we would call libertarian today, I think. And
you know, when I knew something was weird, I was a kid, and it's so funny. I told myself I was just going to talk about your school because I'm so
dude, I don't go wherever we can go anywhere.
When I was a kid, the anti-smoking rhetoric became so fucking intense that I started thinking that I was seeing some Nazi shit in it.
Oh yeah, you started identifying that early.
Yeah, as a kid, I was like, okay, but it's probably, I don't remember how old I was. I remember when I was probably 16 or 17. There was a massive anti-smoking movement in the United States. Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, this is a little much. Just like, I get it that it's bad. Yeah, but treating people like this is they're like, we're gonna become. You don't want to, like, that's the problem. Like it's the prison guard thing. Like, let's say you're 100% for the vaccine. You are 100% certain that it saves all human lives. You don't want to be the person who forces other people to take it. It makes you a monster. Yep. Do it for yourself. Like, no matter how bad cigarette smoking is, do not, it's the same thing. We send these boys over to fight the bad guys in the Middle East. You have to remember that we're creating murderers. Yeah. You have to, like, you want to put Charles Manson to death with the gas chamber. He's a bad guy. He raped and killed, blah, blah, blah. But someone has to do it. Who's going to become the murderer, me or Matthew? Matthew, are you going to pull the trigger? Or am I going to pull the trigger? Well, because the court says he has to be killed. Like, there's an equation for everything. Yeah. And that's why when you do kill somebody, there's always two guys, you know, whether it's whatever it is, right? There's lethal injection. There's two guys hitting a button for the plunger. There's two guys dropping the pill in the gas chamber. There's two guys. So that way. Yeah. I don't think that fixes it though. I think no, it doesn't fix it. Not at all. Not at all. But at least gives the illusion of we care about that. Yes. But yeah, you know, I mean, that's exactly right, man. Yeah. It's interesting. It's religiosity at best. I mean, but hardcore propaganda, right? Becoming that guy that nobody likes, of just like, look, this is what you got to do. Yeah, that's interesting. How do you think you recognize that at a young age? I don't know. Because I remember it, but I definitely didn't. But part of me is very. I don't know how I have this skill, but I'm so thankful for it. I don't do a lot of ad hominem, and I don't drag people into the conversation. And so so for instance, if you were there smoking a cigarette, telling me how bad smoking is, a lot of people would be like, well, he's a hypocrite. Like, I would never go there. I would see you as just a dude who's smoking, who's telling me smoking's bad. What does dragging you into the conversation? We're talking about smoking being bad. Yeah. What does like, why the fuck am I even looking? And there's a Taoist saying that says, I'm pointing at the moon and you're staring at my hand. Yeah. And that's all. It's because we live with such selfish people. They have no ability to. It's like the other day I posted a picture of like, hey, look what they're feeding my kids. They're feeding my kids Gatorade, goldfish and juice boxes,
Yeah.
and they're feeding my kids poison. And all these parents got defensive and like were commenting on my Instagram, how dare you judge us? We feed our kids that. How dare you call it poison? It's not poison. So I wrote the definition of poison out and I go, it is poison. And there's no reason to be offended. I feed my kid this same shit too.
Yeah.
I use an iPhone that's made by child labor. I'm not in denial. If I tell you, you scumbag, you're using a phone by child labor that's made by child labor, and you say, well, so are you, that like, what?
Yeah.
I like, for me, that's not a response.
Yep.
My response to them would be like, okay, now let's move forward and talk about the subject. You're using a phone that's used by child like, don't deny the fact you feed your kid poison. You don't have to defend it.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Just own it. Be like, yep. Yesterday it was my kid's birthday. I fucking brought home a big old pile of poison.
Yep.
And then if you don't think it's poison, just look up the definition. Words have meanings.
That's right. The ability to separate, I think, the intellectual and the emotional on that, though, I think is an indicate, at least in my experience, that's an indicator for me of somebody who is self-confident, though. I think you have to have a peace of mind that only comes with actual confidence in order to be able to do that and to be able to separate that. I really do. So kudos to you, because I agree 100%. It's not a personal attack, and it doesn't, discredit the fact that we will own up to our own bullshit on that too.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to know. We all know picking our nose is wrong.
Yeah,
we all do it.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, yep.
It's okay. I don't know if wrong is the right word, but you feel me on. There was something I saw. Oh, did I see this on Oh man, I have so many questions here. Oh, let me shift here for a second. What is Socratic discussion? You use that word. I looked up the definition. I already forgot what it is. What is Socratic discussion?
Yeah, it's a hard thing to define, I guess. It's a harder thing to do, but the reality is, in education, good questions are infinitely better than good answers, right? I mean, that's really what our whole shtick is about, is that we want people to continue curiosity. So for us, when we're talking about being Socratic, we are talking about the fact that our guides, the adults on campus, are not going to ever answer any questions, right? We're going to do the whole Morpheus thing of asking you a question in return to see what you think and why you think it. And everything we do is to get you to come to those conclusions on your own, whatever those might be, without any, pretense of us saying, well, your answer should be this, but what do you think? It's like, no, what do you think? And how do we extrapolate those
Mr.
ideas?
Beaudreau, can I use the bathroom?
What is the protocol around that? How do you do that? Why do you, who can you ask? If you're not sure, who can you
excuse me, Mr. Beaudreau, I have to use the restroom. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
See you later. I mean, it's really that. It's not
Mr. Beaudreau, do masks work?
What do you think about that?
Okay.
Right. I mean, it's what do you think about that? What have you heard about that? It's just exploring what their experience is, because the beauty is Sevan's going to have a different experience of that because his parents have taught him this.
Oh, I get it.
Religion has said this. And then I have a different experience. And so then we want them to have those conversations, right? I can actually sit down and give rationale, give reasoning behind why I say I believe what I believe. But then I also learned to listen to Sevan, who says, well, I believe something completely different. We go, okay, cool. Well, what do you believe? And let's both compare. Let's compare evidence. Let's chat back and forth. And really, at the end of the day, we may not come to a conclusion on this particular topic. We may actually find out that we don't necessarily agree with each other. And then we can also learn that, well, that's okay. We can still be friends, because the reality is nobody on this planet agrees with you on 100% of everything. So, we have those kind of conversations, but we want them to understand how to think, right? So we'll frame some of these.
There, you said it. We want them to understand how to think. And that's what you were doing to me just now. You weren't telling me what to think. You were giving me the opportunity to practice thinking.
Right? And so then we'll give more thought exercises too, where we might say, okay, Sevan, here's an example of a Socratic discussion we did during a NASA quest, right? So we did a project around NASA, around space. So I say, okay, let's give you a little background context, Sevan. I'm going to show you the Challenger, when the Challenger went up from 1986, 1987, right? And we're going to show you the actual Like you and I watched it when we were kids in school, and then the spaceship goes up and it explodes. Right. And then we're going to show you Ronald Reagan's address to the nation at that time. And he's going to come on and he's going to talk about how we need to, come back and honor these guys and what we need to do. But now I want to put you in a situation. So Sevan, you are now Ronald Reagan. You are now the president of the United States. This just happened in the United States. Do you, A, double NASA's funding so that something like this never, ever, ever happens again? Or do you, B, dismantle NASA altogether so that nothing like this ever happens again? Where do you go with this? Right. And we'll pose these A and B questions and just kind of continue down the reasoning with why. And a lot of times what we'll do is intentionally pose A or B questions that are completely opposite sides of the spectrum. And a lot of times people will go, okay, well, the answers a lot of times are in these gray areas in the middle. Probably, yeah. But it's a better thought exercise if we pose two extremes and then let you have to go, okay, I've got to make a hard decision. I've got to pick one. If I've got to pick one, I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to try to rationalize here, because even if your real true answer is right there in the middle, you're forced to have to think, what are the extremes, right? And when you can understand extremes on things, you can usually get more comfortable with talking about why you believe somewhere in the middle is more of a right answer. Right, because you understand.
Oh, really? That is the natural consequence of that.
That's thinking, right? You can understand how to. It just makes more sense because you've looked at it. Just makes a more scientific observation of you're looking at these extremes, right? It's true science. True science is that scientific method of wanting to exhaust all the options, right? And so if I've gone to this extreme over here and this extreme over here, well, now I can more readily be comfortable with wherever my real answer lies. And your answer might come to be one of those extremes. It might be, but at least you are theoretically exhausting that full spectrum of thought in order to come to whatever conclusion it is. Most people just repeat. Most people just go, because somebody I like said this, or because my mom said this, or because society said this, versus actually having a thought exercise of what are the full, what's the full extremity of what are all the answers that could possibly be. That the true scientific method rarely comes out. And so that's what the Socratic method is intended to do, is really get into the science behind thinking, really exhaust all the options and come to a conclusion. Ultimately, of course, being, hopefully humility is involved in there too, understanding that if better evidence comes along, well, then I'll go ahead and shift my ideas.
So the Socratic method is good questions are better than good answers.
That's a big part. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
I'm totally bragging here. I had a friend the other day call me and say to me, "Hey, I'm no longer pro-choice." I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" And I'm, as soon as he tells me that, I know how fucking cool I am, because there's so many people you can't talk to about stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
But like me, you could talk about anything.
Yep.
I like, there's one or two subjects that there's one or two subjects around kids that I will not bend on, that if someone starts going down that avenue, I will I will push back. I'm not interested in hearing anything you have to say about it. But other than that, and he said, so, I would say that I'm pro. I would say that I don't believe in giving women, putting laws on women's bodies. And I also don't believe in abortion, but I would never put a law on a woman's body, because I just think it's a slippery slope. Like it sets precedent. And I think that's really important. But anyway, so I said, "Hey, what's the deal? Tell me your thought process." He goes, "Well, when a woman has control over her body and she can say what she does and doesn't do, but the second she has intercourse with a man and unprotected sex and the sperm goes in her, then everything's changed. That was where her dominion over her body begins and ends. The second you have sex with a man, you lose that." And I was like, wow, like I was so glad that he told me that.
Yeah.
I thought that was like really, really like well thought out. I don't know if I agreed with him or didn't agree with him, but I'm 49 years old and I had never heard that.
Yeah, and nor have I. And I think that, but that's just the beauty of it.
But I was so like, I'm the shit that my friends can have this conversation.
Come and have that conversation.
I'm not like, fuck you, you hate women, you motherfucker. Totally. Like, I don't have any of that.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know.
it does say a whole lot more about, and imagine if people could do that, right? Like it says a lot about you, that he was able to go out and exercise that train of thought. And he's going, this is an interesting way of looking at it. I've never thought about it this before. I'd love to bounce this off of Sevan and see, and kind of play that out. Because that's really, I don't even think that's a test of you. I think that's more him testing out his theory, going to somebody he respects and figuring out for himself where he is on that spectrum. He's figuring it out for himself, and he knows you're a good spot to be able to do that. I think that's a beautiful freaking thing, man. That's
a workmate too.
Yes.
Yeah, a workmate, like someone I worked with for 15 years. Like that's not like a common, just calls me one day and drops that on me.
That's cool, man. That's a good thing.
I was tripping, but I want to have, and maybe you can help me with this. I want to have people on my podcast who know how to think, because so we're living in this world where they're telling us the choices, and that's why I felt like I got maybe a little defensive inside when you told me you give the kid the choices, but I understand it now. Go ahead.
Sorry, and I don't want to interrupt on that too, but when I'm talking about given choices too, there is also a graduated kind of scale for that too. So again, talking through extremes, you've got your normal belief in society that you just can't trust children, period, and you need to be the overlord of their lives. Then you have
huge mistake.
Then you've got the other end of the spectrum where it's like, no, my 3-year-old is a sovereign individual. Every single thing he or she does and decides is absolutely correct. That's also a big mistake, right? And so you have this whole graduated scale too. Clearly, if you go, okay, my 6-month-old is completely sovereign and I'm just going to leave them alone for a few months and he or she has it, well, that's, you would see how ludicrous that thought is. And so there's this graduated throughout development. You start teaching early on how to make choices by presenting them with only good choices, right? When we've got our 4-year-olds and our 5-year-olds and we're saying, hey, we want you to make a choice on this, I'm only going to, give them choices A, B, C, and D that are all going to be good, solid choices. Then they get used to making choices. They start seeing what good choices look like. They can't rationalize what's a good choice and bad all the time right there. But the longer they do that, the more good examples they have around them, the quicker they're able to develop kind of that own internal compass of a good choice, bad choice, kind of deal. So it's just such a nuanced sort of thing. So I just want to make sure I said that too.
Yeah. I finally got my head wrapped around, I think, what you were saying. I think it's anytime anyone asks you if you're pro-life or pro-choice or the abortion idea comes up, I think the smartest and most conscious people in the room rethink the entire thing like they've never heard it before. It's a very serious issue. Yep, killing babies, putting laws over women's bodies. You shouldn't have a stance on it. If you have a stance on it, I would be willing to bet my finger against your house that you are unconscious. What do I mean by unconscious? On autopilot, you're just giving an answer. It is, yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, yeah. I was going to go somewhere with this, but I'm gonna switch gears again. There was something you said about independence. And I don't remember where my notes. Unfortunately, my notes aren't detailed enough. You had independence. Somehow in relationship with responsibility. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, I mean, the freedom and responsibility link for us is definitely a non-negotiable link. We want people to understand personal responsibility matters and freedom matters, and those things are they're the two sides of the same coin. Kind of deal. So that's whether parenting or whether here on our schools. I mean, that is one of the messages that is woven in, not just verbally, but systemically as well.
So it made me think of something. I was homeless for 2 years. Then I lived in a car for 5 years, and I was extremely free. And I had like you. I was very, very disciplined. I woke up the same time every morning. I practiced my drawing. I still worked out every day. Yep. I went to the coffee shop. I had this routine, And all my peers, unfortunately, when you're homeless, you really, all of my peers were drug addicts. It was really sad. They weren't doing what I was doing.
Yep.
But when I was homeless, I was extremely free.
Yep.
And because I had crazy independence,
Yep.
I could get, I had overcome all sorts of fear. People are terrified of being homeless.
Very much so.
Terrified.
Yep.
Terrified. But so you overcome that fear, and then you learn how to get food, and you learn how to where to sleep and where it's safe, and you start to really, really need so little, and you
Yep.
have so much personal responsibility
Yep.
and so much personal accountability, and with that, your happiness just fucking flourishes. It really, I can't say this because my ego won't let me. I want to say that since I've had kids, it's the happiest days of my life. But if you caught me in a more honest mood, I might even say when I was homeless, it was nuts how happy I was.
I believe that.
Is that kind of what you're doing too? You teach a man to be able to dance, fight, and hunt, and now he can and sorry to be so sexist about it, one-sided, but I have 3 boys, because now they can court women, get food, and protect the house.
Yeah, I think the ultimate form of mastery in anything is simplicity. And when you're going back to what you're talking about right there, you just found the beauty in the simplicity. This is all I need. I need some sort of shelter. I need some sort of, I need some sort of mate. I need some food. It's the very basic human needs. And when you can, but it starts in your head. I mean, it starts up here, especially, combating all the cultural shit that we're fed. And so that's exactly it, is getting back to the closer you can get to just complete self-reliance. Right. That
Yes,
simplicity.
that's the word
right
I was
there.
looking for.
It's that, and then all those other good things. I think, the whole resilience and the happiness and the joy and the I think all of those things, those kind of virtues that we want, are able to flourish in that simplicity of self-reliance. That's where it really flourishes. We muddle it with all the other shit on the outside.
How many teachers do your schools have? How many students do these schools have?
So teachers are we wouldn't even call them teachers, we call them guides, as few as possible. So we're kind of playing with these.
Isn't that funny to hear you say that? Like that's your brag. Well, the traditional brag is, oh, we have 3 teachers for every 12 kids.
For sure, right? It's like,
and your brag is as few as possible.
It's like, God, if we can get to like the
fuck the Gestapo
ratio, the student teacher ratio for us should be, we should be able to run a couple hundred students on a campus with about 2 adults. I mean, that's the reality. That's the reality of where we want to get. And because it's this graduated responsibility too for the older heroes to take on more and more of the responsibility of running the campus itself too. So it solves a lot of things, right? You create a community. It gives them massive responsibility. It also defeats the conundrum of young people going, well, I need to get a job, but I've got no experience. And how am I going to get experience if I've got no job? Well, no, you actually ran a freaking organization. In high school, you spend a lot of your years running an organization. And then when you were doing you were doing things like running an actual business and things like that. So they come out with a massive amount they have come out of high school, assuming they've gone through, kind of all the years, with us, they come out with more real world experience than 95% of your college graduates, period, end of story. So, and this whole, growth mindset the whole time, and this whole personal responsibility and resilience the whole time too. So it literally allows, I used to say, well, it creates different humans, and that's bullshit. It actually just allows for humans to develop the way we're able to develop versus, shooting all these arrows into us while we're trying to grow.
So how many you have? There's 3 campuses. For people who don't know, these campuses are around within proximity to Sacramento, California, and Sacramento, California is about 90 miles inland from San Francisco. So if you look at the North American continent, find the state of California, find San Francisco, and then go inland 90 miles. There's 3 campuses, I'd say, within 100 miles of there, right?
Yep.
It was Lincoln, Placer, and Roseville.
Lincoln, I'm here in Roseville, and then Sacramento proper. Yep, we just bought a campus there too. Yep.
And how many kids at each school?
So each one right now is a little different. So this was our first campus, and so this is the first kind of built out one. So we got about 150 students here, which is about, and we've got a wait list, right? And so people will, if you got a wait list, why don't you just add more kids? But that screws up everything that we do. So
What's the age range?
We're K through 12 here on this campus.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I'm going to let you go
Oh,
one
you're
second.
good.
I'm going to let you go in a second. And how much does it cost to attend?
We try to stay like under market value. So it's only 10 grand a year, which I know that's still a lot of money. I don't want to downplay that. I know that. And the downside of privatized education is always the cost. But the reality is, comparative to some of the, quote unquote, private schools and all that, it's a pretty solid deal.
My kid's Montessori school was $7,000 a month for my 3 kids to attend Montessori.
Yep.
A month.
Yep. Totally. We're ridiculously reasonable.
So then I did the math, and if I put that $7,000 a month into a conservative mutual fund, my kids would have $20 million at the age of 70 each. There's no fucking way. There's no fucking.
Yep.
Like I just think, what would I want? Well, I'd take the 20 million at 70.
Totally. 100%. As you should. That's
Set me free.
Right.
Okay,
That's
sorry.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay, so sorry. Go on. Okay,
No,
so
right.
150 kids. So can you kind of walk me through? Man, there's so many questions. Why do let's start here. Why do parents choose you, and are they scared?
Shit, yeah, they're scared. A lot of parents are scared. So that's one of the hardest. That's the best question right there. Is why do they choose us?
They're their kids. Your kids are your Sistine Chapel. Anytime anyone talks about legacy, I went to the moon, I invented the light bulb. Fuck off. Your only legacy is your kids.
That's exactly right.
It.
And dude, honestly, and that was one of the best answers. So Mark Bell was on my show too, and we were sitting right here in the studio, and I asked him about his legacy, and he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm not worried about any kind of legacy. I got nothing. And he's like, I got my 2 kiddos at home. Like, that's about as far of a legacy as I can get. And I think it's absolutely spot on. I think it's absolutely right.
So why give Acton Academy? Why let them draw on my campus or my canvas? That's my fucking canvas. I'm the fucking Michelangelo.
So you are as the parent, you are the first and foremost Michelangelo. That child is the David, but at some point that David needs to start doing its own artwork too, right? So like the earlier the better. That David needs to start building out itself, and that's why parents will come here, is because of our belief that we're not going to teach them. We are going to put them in this kind of controlled chaos, this environment of continuous challenges, this hero's journey where they're going to have to face some dragons that we can safely put in front of them. It's not going to be, hey, we're going to get you out at 9 years old and go fight these 2 guys. But we're going to put some, we're going to actually have you open a business, run a business, and put you in a real world scenario where you're maybe pitching to investors at 12 and really trying to get some money and having to get, like, you're going to have these real world scenarios that are kind of some higher stress, higher stakes, to allow you to build out all of that resilience and things that we were talking about earlier. And so we've just got a way to partner with you as the parent, who we do see as the primary educator. Both of us need to look at that young hero and go, okay, we are going to trust them to develop that resilience and self-direction to then perpetuate their own journey to where we are no longer needed, right? It's like parenting on steroids. You want to parent your kids in a way that they grow into these amazingly happy, resilient, joyful, integrous human beings. And ultimately, they don't need to live in your basement, but they want to have a relationship with you, right? We're on the same page as that. Yep. We want us as the adults to be completely fucking unnecessary, but to have a cool relationship where we can be this continuous Morpheus of just like, hey, what about looking over here? What if we open this door? Fuck it. It's up to you if you walk in.
Or that they can lead me they could lead me someday.
And eventually they end up leading us, right? And that kind of comes full circle in return, right? So it's that kind of concept. So that's what parents are ultimately saying they are coming here for. The hardest part for us is finding who those parents actually are. And what I mean by that is you've got a lot of people who intellectually understand that the government schools, and I don't even call it public ed, I call it government ed, that government ed is
You have some great talks on that,
phenomenal.
by the way. What you were saying on the Mark Bell podcast about monopolies, maybe we should hit that. But finish your thought, and we'll come back to that.
I mean,
You have some great thoughts on that.
It's a hot freaking mess. So
Yeah.
people understand, and people understand that, they get it. But do they really trust their child? Do they really trust their parenting of that child? And do they trust themselves to support that child and do that? Like, those are all the harder questions. So those are the things that we try to filter out as much as humanly possible. Ultimately, it ends up being somewhat of a guess, right? Until the shit hits the fan, until like you really have that kid in there and see how they respond, how the parents respond, and you watch that growth. Like, we're filtering those families up front too, because they are scared. They are scared of, like, we don't want my kid to come out of this government school, but shit, right now it's only exaggerated with all. I don't want my kids going to a school where they're going to be masked. I don't want my kids going to the school where the jab is going to be mandatory. So we've got.
How about your school? I don't want my school where they're not. What time do they have math? Well, they don't. What the fuck? This school?
They still have the ability to do math. We just don't know it's time for math. We go, here you go. You got these, parameters around going and getting it, but we don't.
If I come to your school, if I send my kid there in kindergarten, by the time he leaves, has he been the janitor?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
He's done some cleaning. He's like clean classrooms.
Absolutely.
And then by the time he's a senior, he's maybe managed the money for the wrestling team.
He's managed the money. He's been the athletic director. He may have been a guide for younger students. So going in and teaching, he may have developed a PE program for the school. He may have learned from our chef on how to cook real food and actually been cooking food for the young students. And oh, by the way, he also might be through calculus if that's part of his journey. All of the above. Yep.
I met a parent the other day in my kid's tennis program. The parent hadn't been there in a year, and I asked him what happened, where'd he go, and he said, well, he didn't like the fact that the tennis academy that these kids went to, he didn't like that their rules and regulations around the so-called pandemic. He didn't like the protocols they put in place to protect the kids.
Yeah.
And I just bit the inside of my cheek. I didn't say anything to him. I said, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he said to me, "Hey, do your kids, where do your kids go to school?" Mm-hmm. And I said that I don't know. My wife does all that, but I have no real interest in any of that stuff. And he said, "Oh, well, my wife's a professor at the college, the big university, and we put a premium. And she's a math professor, and we put a big premium on education." I go, "Oh yeah, I put a big premium on education too." He goes, "Well, I thought you said you're just not worried about it." I'm like, "Well, that's not the method I'm going to do it."
Yeah.
And then he said, well, why not? And I said, well, the primary reason, and I just exploded on him, basically, not in a bad way, not mean or asshole, but I just said, hey, dude, the same reason I have no interest in tennis.
Yeah.
My kid's been doing tennis here a year. He does it. I practice tennis with him 7 days a week. I have no interest. The only reason why I brought him here is because the instructor doesn't fool around and because they didn't require masks.
Yeah.
And so, to go back even one further step, people thought that I was going to put my kids in. I was trying to get my kids interested in sports.
Yeah.
I have no interest in my kids getting sports. I have them interested in getting relationships with adults, professional adults.
Yep. Perfect. Good example.
And and now it's funny you say this. My 7-year-old, he just turned 7. He's been taking tennis for over a year, and he does practices 5 to 7 days a week. And same with jiu-jitsu and the martial arts. He's been doing that for 3 years. He can teach it. And I see him teaching his brothers now.
Yep.
But like, I don't even recognize the person who's the teacher. Like when he goes into teacher mode.
Yeah. Yep. It's a different deal. I'm
like, who the fuck is this guy?
Totally. And that
wasn't even what I was trying to teach. I wasn't trying to teach him to be a teacher. I wasn't trying to teach him Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I was just trying to get him in front of Garth Taylor in Santa Cruz so that he could see what it's like to be
that's right.
A professional.
That's right.
And all this other shit's like, and my kids know math because we've been working out since they've been 2. And so their subtraction and addition's insane, right?
Yeah.
My 4-year-old we can be at rep 32, and he's like, yep, we have 68 more reps till we get to 100. I'm like, God damn.
And he's just got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. He just no T.
Yep.
I heard you say something to Mark Bill about that. We don't teach kids how to walk or talk.
At all. But we just encourage the failure, right? We encourage them to, they get up and they fall down. And when they fail, we fucking applaud. We applaud. We go, yeah, good job. Cause you got up and you tried and you fell down, and then you're going to go again. Cool. And they fall down. Oh, yay. And we applaud. Right. And then at some point we're taught that, well, when the failure happens, you don't applaud anymore. You go in for intervention. Right. Like it's, and that there's also a timeline associated with it. When you started getting into school, I put a premium on education too, but fuck school. Like those are not the same thing. Those are different things. And so, yeah, we put this timeline on it too. And I use this example quite a bit too. Like when people look at me, I walk into a room, nobody goes, that dude did not walk until he was 18 months old. Nobody looks at me and nobody says that. I was a 5'9" white dude that could dunk a basketball. I was a pretty good martial artist. I was a pretty,
and you didn't walk till you were 18 months?
Right.
Yeah.
So we
did you crawl? I know this isn't the point, but did you crawl? Did you ski?
Yeah, not a whole lot. Yeah, I guess I was pretty minimal, and it was just always getting picked up too. So I knew I could get picked up. And so it was just, there was just a culmination of things. I didn't necessarily even have anything wrong. It was just more parents snatching me kind of deal and just picking me up and wandering me around. And I was lazy, or whatever it was. But I mean, 18 months old, all of a sudden I could walk and everything was fine.
Do you have siblings, Matthew?
Yeah, I do. I'm the oldest of 4.
Oh, boys or girls?
Two other guys and one girl.
Are you friends with them?
I am friends with the oldest 2. My brother, who is just a year younger than me, is my best buddy. My sister's a few years younger than me and lives locally too. The other brother is actually our half brother, who lives with my father, and he's quite a bit. How old am I? I'll be 42 next month. So my brother is 20. That brother is 22.
Oh, he's young.
Yeah, he's young. So we didn't have much of a, we didn't grow. I was in college when he was born, and so we don't have a ton of. And then he lives with my dad, and has been told that we're kind of the enemy too. So not a lot of relationship there. But
no one's in jail.
Nobody's in jail. No. Yeah, nobody's in jail. No. No.
Is your dad proud of you? You think?
Yeah, for sure.
He is.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, I think man to man, I think he has a high level of, I would think he has a high level of respect for me. Very, very much so. Again, I harbor no ill will to him, towards him whatsoever. And I want nothing but the best for him. I don't think having a relationship with him benefits me or my kids. And I love my kids and my wife more than I care to develop a relationship with him. And I think that's the priority for me.
It's weird, right?
It is.
Did you ever have this, like you're growing up and you're like, shit, one day my parents are going to die. That's going to be so lonely. It's going to be, everyone's going to die. I'm going to be all alone. And then you have kids, and I don't mean to be an asshole, but it kind of mitigates that.
It totally does. Yeah.
You're like,
totally does.
You're kind of like, okay, if my parents die, I mean, it's going to really hurt, but it's going to hurt my kids more than it hurts me.
And that's, isn't that interesting? Like that's
because I have my kids now. Yeah. I almost feel bad for it. Guilty. I don't quite, but almost.
For sure. Well, and that's when it's one of those things that's
I used to be able to just think about my mom dying and start crying.
Yeah.
I would do that in drama and theater all the time. If I needed to do a scene where crying, I would just pretend like my mom died and fucking.
Right. Yeah. And, and now it's probably different. But if you did the same thing with your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, you're screwed.
Now it's more like rape. Now it would be more like, yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't even fuck with that.
You couldn't even.
Maybe I probably wouldn't even go there. Yeah.
Yep.
As soon as I was gonna try it, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that.
Yep. Totally. Don't even want to pretend, dude. Yes. Don't even want to pretend. Yeah. 100%. And that's one of those things that you literally, dude, you'll never. You can't. You can understand it intellectually. You cannot understand it emotionally and viscerally until you have those kids. There's just no way to understand that.
Yeah, it's a I wonder about my parents. I speak to them. I see them a lot. I'm very, very, very close to my mom. I see my mom almost every day. And it's awesome.
Yeah.
I usually tell people that my crowning achievement in my life is the my relationship with my wife.
Yeah.
I'm just so fucking proud of it. But maybe it's with my mom too. I've never thought of it until just now saying it to you, but I'm pretty proud of that. It's the crown jewel. It's pretty
M-
fucking dope.
Mom
Um,
more than
but
dad.
say that again.
Mom more than dad.
Yeah. I'm not as, I'm a little more, I think that the fault with my relationship with my dad, I don't believe it's both of our faults. I believe it's his fault.
Yeah.
I think that maybe my dad drinks a lot,
Yeah.
and he doesn't listen. He's not a good listener.
Mm.
And he's got a hearing issue. And so I just think that he's done stuff to himself that's made it so my dad's had an extremely hard life. My dad's the oldest of 10 kids, born in a fucking concrete hut in fucking Lebanon, no running water, no fucking electricity, fucking death and mayhem all around him, chaos, scrambling to get every meal, named
Yeah.
after fucking Stalin. I mean, my dad's not he's not like these fucking guys like around us in this
Yeah.
world.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
raised 9 brothers and sisters. 2 of his siblings died. They slept in the house for a week, or the dead bodies stay in the house for a week because it's part of his culture. He had to sleep next to his dead siblings. I mean, just, just all the old country crazy shit, right?
Totally.
That walk 10 miles in the snow. But I want, even my parents are politically like so, they see the world so differently than me, but I
Yeah.
wonder sometimes if they're still proud of me because of what a warrior I've become, and the fact that I'm willing to stand up for my kids in a way that I wonder if they see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That like I'm feeling this responsibility to speak up for all the people who can't. It's not even responsibility. Maybe I don't know what the word is. But I'm speaking up for my kids and all the other kids and all the people out there who are being coerced to do shit that they don't want to do. I'm standing up against the bad guys. And I just wonder if my parents see that, even if they don't agree with what I'm doing, if they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Because it's not who I am.
Yeah.
I'm not this person that people think I
To
am.
battle.
Yeah. I don't care about, like, if I didn't have kids, I wouldn't care about like the Constitution or freedom or like, I don't care. I'm fine going to the beach and drinking beer every day and playing Frisbee.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't who this persona of me, who I am, like that the world sees, or like standing up for all this stuff, or like not tolerating racism, not tolerating medical coercion, not tolerating like bullying, all like, I really don't care. But I have to do this. Because I'm independently wealthy and I can't be canceled. Like, I just have to do this.
I think
But I don't want to. I'm not interested in it. I'm not like, I just have to.
I think that same, the genesis of you doing that anyways, and really the genesis of that being the love that you have for your own kids. I would think that, and I can't, obviously I can't say it as from any source of experience. I mean, I would think that's the same thing your parents would still have for you too. I mean, that's still that would still instill a will to watch what you're doing and to be proud
You'd
of you
think,
with integrity. I would think so.
but then how can someone vote for someone that wants your kid to get an injection?
Yeah.
How can you be 80? How can you be 80 years old? Like, if I was 80 years old and there was an injection that could make it so I live another 5 years, or forced to take my kids to take, I would die.
Yeah.
I would throw my life down for my kids or my grandkids in a second. Like, how are all these people okay with not standing up for their kids? I don't get it. I really don't get it. I'm asking you.
I really think the cognitive dissonance, especially for that generation, has been, I think they grew up in a very programmed time, right? It was you don't question the media, you don't question the government. It's Democrats are the people for the people. And so I'm just going to sign my tickets. Like, I'm a Steelers fan for life, right? It doesn't matter.
That's how I think of it. They're football fans.
They're football fans.
They're football, but it's our lives are at stake.
For sure. And I don't think they get, I think they grew up in a very unique time where that programming was real, and they just believe, look, man, if you just fucking just shut up and just, listen to what the media is telling you. If they're telling you there's a pandemic, and we're going to ride it out, and we're going to do what the government says to do because they have your best interests at heart. Like, I really think they actually believe, those things. And I almost wonder if they're just kind of getting tired to the point too, where it's like, look, it's not worth, we believe him, and it's not worth the thought exercise to go down the logic train. It's easier at that point to just stay with kind of my emotional, my pre-programming. I really think that generation is really there. They don't want the thought exercise of having to go down the logic train. I don't think they do. And it's an
Are you
interesting.
hopeful? Are you hopeful?
No, I don't think hope is a strategy at all. I'm proactive.
Are
Uh,
you, let me rephrase it.
I'm optimistic
Are you
about.
optimistic?
I'm optimistic about what I'm doing. I'm optimistic about what I do for my family. Am I optimistic about what this? No, I think the country is going down a road that is going to get worse. I really do. But I'm optimistic in my resilience and what I'm going to make sure I do for those that I can serve to make sure we're okay no matter what.
Right.
Right? It's
Um,
a different kind of thing. Personally optimistic. Collectively, fuck no.
So someone in the comments named Jesus Ramos says, "Quit bitching about the damn shot, Sevan. You don't want it. We all get it." You're totally, I think, missing the point. It has nothing to do with me.
Correct.
I'm not going to get it. I'm independently wealthy. There's nothing. I don't care. I can quit bitching about it the second. But the 10 cops that are my friends that are being forced to take it, who can't speak
Right.
up, or else they're going to lose their jobs. And,
Right.
the firefighters I know, the doctors, the nurses I know, all these people being forced. I'm just doing it for them. If you, Jesus, I totally hear you.
Yep.
I don't want to turn. It's
It's all the other. It's all the others, and that's where the
and they can't speak up.
and that's where the laziness of thought comes in. Is it just stops with on both sides, on either side, pro vaccine, of pro COVID shot, right, anti COVID shot. It's the laziness of thought, which, by the way, has been perpetuated by things like school and lazy parenting, and along with other things in pop culture. But it's the laziness to just stop right there and go, I want it, vaccines good, I don't want it, vaccines bad. Both lazy. It's what is the ripple effect? When I asked you that question around Ronald Reagan and NASA, well, then the thought exercise is, okay, well, what are the extremes? Like if we double down on this, what is the long tail effect of doubling down on building out a space program? What are all the net positives, net negatives? What are the ripple effects, right? Likewise, go to the other side. What are the ripple effects? If we just shut that down altogether, what are the ripple effects of that? And this is the same thing, right? When you start talking about this jab, it's paying attention to what are the ripple effects that are going on. If you take a look outside the American bubble, take a look at history of government overreach, you start going, okay, what are the ripple effects of us saying that this is an issue? That's where it starts to get, I think, scary. And that's where I think you see where things are going with all these vaccine people losing those jobs, the vaccine passports. What if this does get attached to your ability to travel? Does that shut it down for you? Or your ability to buy food, right? If I can no longer go to a grocery store or have access to my money because I'm not a compliant boy, that's the area we're headed. And I think that's what the majority of people are speaking up against. No, I don't think the majority of people give a shit if somebody wants to get the shot or not.
I agree 100%. Do you believe that I had this car? It was a 1986 Mercedes 560 SEC or something. It was like the song that was always talked about in rap songs. It was the most expensive production car made in 1986. Like $109,000 a car, and I bought it on Craigslist when I first started working for CrossFit, when I was making like $3,000 a month, and I got it for like $3,600. It was like mint condition, and it was the first production car ever that had an airbag.
Huh.
And do you believe? And now we have Jeff Bezos going to space, and now every car has an airbag, right?
Yeah.
And every day there's a new car coming out that can park itself, and like the technology, and everyone can afford a toothbrush now and a water pick. It's just like the price. Everyone can get a 60-inch TV for $300.
Yeah.
When you look at the Acton Academy and you see I don't think you owe any explanation for being $10,000 a student. But do you see a day where this thing becomes so big that maybe it like, could it be public education, or is that a oxymoron?
Yeah.
Could public education be run like that, or would that be an oxymoron?
That's a great question. Yeah, government schools will never be run like this ever.
Okay.
Period. End of story. So
But the price could drop, right? In 20 years, there could be 10,000 of these schools.
Oh, the price on so that's two different conversations.
So yeah, so sorry, that's where I was kind of leading to it. Sorry.
So government.
Okay, so do the government one first. Sorry.
To be clear, government schools will never adopt this. Government schools, well, and I always want to delineate. So I've got another like TEDx that I shot last week that'll be coming out, and I kind of I'm talking about
it's the COVID education.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
So we got that coming. And one of the things I always want to delineate, I did so in that talk, and I want to make sure I always do that too, is I am not anti government school teacher, government school administrator, the human beings, right? It's like what we were talking about at the very beginning. I can separate those things, right? And so those people, the majority of people in those systems, perpetuating those systems, really are there for the right reasons. The majority of those people really do want to help young people. They believe wholeheartedly in what they are doing, just like I believe most doctors believe wholeheartedly in what they're recommending. Whether or not I agree with what they're recommending is different. I think most people have the right intent there that are in schools. So there's that. The system of government schooling, though, is about politics. It's about profit. It's about control. It's about all of these things that really don't help humans develop the way we're supposed to develop. So government schools, there's too much money, power, politics involved for that to ever change. Otherwise, it would be more like, well, let's integrate the system and let's infiltrate the system and let's figure out how to blow it up from within. And there are still people that want to fight in that way. It'll never happen. So we just went, okay, cool. We're going to build the better model. We're going to build the better example. To begin that, yes, there is a cost involved. Unfortunately, our cost per student on our campuses is drastically lower than any kind of government schools, and it will continue to be driven lower and lower. We are moving forward in a multitude of ways to allow that to be more accessible to young people. One is just by fact of the very nature of what we do with our students starting businesses. I've got high school students that pay their own tuition because the businesses that they've run and started while here pay more than that. I mean, we have students.
Can you give me an example of that? Just a quick, it doesn't have to be detailed.
Gosh,
just
man. I mean, we've
got someone started a car wash and now they pay their tuition.
I mean, we've had people start a car wash, but we've also had people do more intricate, kind of creating custom. A young lady that created custom art project. She does abstract art, right? And so she was being commissioned to do abstract art she did a VW bug. She's done paintings that she sold.
She painted on a VW bug?
That's correct. Yeah, and did this abstract artwork. She really found her niche with snowboards and skateboards, and then got them into local stores here in the Sacramento area. Right. And so she's creating a business out of that. She actually sold a skateboard to Tony Hawk. He took it to his Californian Hall of Fame induction. And so we have another young man and she
does that at school.
Mm-hmm.
That's your school.
That's part of her specific journey.
So I could walk onto your campus and I would see her either painting the skateboard or on a computer writing an email to the paint manufacturer or ordering or talking with Tony Hawk's agent and being like, hey, we would mail this out. All that. I could see all that going on.
Be part of her. That'd be part of her day. Just like you would see her interacting with other younger students, just like you would see, wouldn't necessarily go, wait a second, that girl's doing something different. It's just the hubbub of what everybody's doing.
And she's inspiring her peers to do that too.
And
they see it and they're like, holy shit. And then I'm going to sell a violin to fucking Adele now.
They're gonna totally, man. Totally. Right. You got guys that do custom woodwork and they do custom bike ramps and do custom wooden flags that they sell. And there's these young.
How about any stand-up comedians? Are there any kids?
Yet. I'm down.
When I was a kid, I really, really enjoyed making fun of other people and making fun of myself. I loved filthy humor. Yeah. I loved Rodney Dangerfield. I loved how he made fun of himself and made fun of other people. It was fucking I could listen to his records all day. Yeah. But it was so taboo. I mean, my mom would let me buy the records, but then I'd still listen to him like I was hiding out.
Yeah, totally. But but
I was like 7, 8, 9, 10. I was ready to tear shit up.
Man, that's something that needs
but I had no outlet. Now I'm 49. I'm trying it on you. I'm trying to squeeze some jokes in here with you as we talk about serious shit.
But you have a knack for communication, right? And you were able to
Yeah.
communicate through film. You're able to communicate through your words. You're able to communicate through these things. And that's something that needs to be fostered early and often. We had a young lady that came to us that was deathly afraid of public speaking, but knew that that was going to be inherently part of what we do. There were going to be presentations. There were going to be pitches to local businesses. There were going to be all these things. And then she went from that to emceeing some of our exhibition events to getting invited to speak at a TEDx herself, right? And so it's those kind of things.
Holy shit. Did she do it?
Let those things. It hasn't happened yet.
How old is she?
16.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is she going to do it?
I'd hope so. Yeah. I mean, that's something she's been working on.
And then are you proud as shit of her?
It's amazing. Right. And but it goes for, it's literally every single student here. It's like, cool, man, go get it. What does that journey look like for you? If we've got a young man, she's doing TEDx, somebody else is making jewelry that they've got in local stores, somebody else is creating these wooden products, somebody's building sheds, somebody else is writing cookbooks, and somebody else is working for YouTube right now, making 6 figures as a 17-year-old in high school. Right?
Oh geez. Hey,
So
anyone grow marijuana?
All the not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
I
don't smoke marijuana anyway, but I really, as a kid, it's the funnest thing to grow. It's like I cannot condone burning or smoking anything, people. It's fucking idiocy breathing in burning objects into your lungs. I don't eat that shit. I don't do any of that. That being said, everyone should grow a weed plant. It's the most fascinating thing, fastest growing plant ever. It's fucking crazy.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, it's amazing. So growing anything's fun. I mean, tomato plants are fun too. So anyway, sorry.
No, you're good, man. No.
So you have these kids and they're doing this stuff in there.
They're all able to do all of this, right? And so a lot of them are able to pay their own tuition. But then, I'm getting a foundation going to where we can do the 501c3 thing so that people want to, donate. It's all scholarships. When we do events.
Do you hate that you have to get in bed with the government through a 501c3?
I'm doing it in a way where it's just that allows for the donations. I don't fully even understand the whole cycle of it, where it's like this business trust that goes to the foundation that goes. I honestly don't fully understand that.
You have smarter people than you who do
that are doing that. That's exactly right. And it's literally just to perpetuate helping is, more young people. So we've got that set up when we do events. So like this last August, we hosted TEDx Roseville. So we actually put a TEDx on here on this campus. And we had sponsors that came in to sponsor the event. Those sponsorships that were over and above the cost of putting on the event all went back towards kids. So the students that we have that we know struggle the most, like we feed that in there. We want to purchase local businesses as well, that if there's anything that we can do to perpetuate income and have that going to drive more of a scholarship fund. So we are doing everything that we can do to try to ultimately go as many places as we can go and drive that cost down and make it accessible to everybody, because that is the biggest downside forever and always will be. The biggest downside of privatized ed is the fact that it freaking costs money.
I just see that, going back to my original thought is that like, this shit has to start somewhere. It has to start at 30,000, has to start at then 20,000, then 10,000. And eventually one of these kids will graduate. He'll be the next Jeff Bezos and he'll give back, $50 million. 100%. And then eventually this thing will get what are those called? Endowments. I mean, you see it'll get billions of dollars that just sits parked somewhere. And
you bet. And that's already happening. If you take a look at the global, kind of this global push now and what we got with the global network and some of the bigger players that have come alongside this, we're just at the precipice. We're at the forefront. The organization that I relate it to the most, honestly, with this movement is CrossFit. I use that analogy quite a bit because CrossFit kind of started as this grassroots sort of thing, and the proof became in the pudding. And then all of a sudden, now there's a CrossFit on every corner kind of deal, and everybody knows what it is. And there's this huge collaborative event, every single year, and there's these local regional events, and it's the support upon support upon support, and you've got all these big players that are jumping in, and it's a very similar trajectory, I believe, for this too. We've got some big players coming aboard.
Then there's probably some crazy lessons in there for you, by the way.
No doubt.
Basically, you know, CrossFit was great. Basically, Greg Glassman's experiment. He
Yeah.
just wanted to train people, and he just experimented on them.
Yeah.
He's a scientist.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
a scientist, like is in the scientific method.
Yep.
He's not a consensus scientist. He doesn't care what the consensus is. He
Yeah.
believes in real like science, the stuff
Yep.
that like the hard sciences, like sociology is not a science. I know you know all this. Psychology
Sure.
is not a science. These are not. This is sorcery. Word sorcery.
Yeah.
To say those things. The sciences are math, biology, physics, and chemistry.
Yeah.
All done. Yeah, geology maybe. Yeah, it's like all done.
Yep.
And weather is consensus science. Climate change is consensus science. I'm not
Right.
saying this like that there's no such thing as that. I'm not saying there's no such thing as global warming, but it's not science, people. It's consensus science. It's the same thing that got Jews burned and witches taken. And
That's exactly right.
don't confuse the two. And it's the same thing with what's happening with all the medication and the entire COVID response. There is no science in it. The science is, it's all consensus. It's there's a guy, Thomas Kuhn, he wrote a book. It's the most cited book in the history of all science literature, and it fucked everything up because he believes in consensus science. You know someone is not a scientist when they believe in consensus science, when they lean on peer review. There's no science there.
Yep.
It doesn't matter how many people say 2 + 2 is 5. Oh, so I forget where I was going with that. I was gonna
You're talking about Glassman and then kind of the experiment.
Sorry. So it was this, yes. So it was this experiment, and he and we all jumped on board.
Yeah. Yep.
Because it was getting great results.
Yep.
Okay, do this,
Yeah.
constantly very functional movement,
Yeah.
execute at high intensity, move large objects over large distances quickly. You know, he defined fitness with kinematics and science, and physics, and so it started growing. And what ended up happening is people started making it their own, and it got so big. And I would argue that maybe he didn't manage his finances right. But when the woke crowd tried to come after him, and he should have just, and it's up to him, you know, it's
Sure.
his ultimately. I would have liked to have seen him say, fuck off.
Yeah, totally.
Fuck you.
Yep.
I'll de-affiliate then. I don't give a fuck. You want to call me racist, sexist? Fuck off.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. And now someone else has it, and it's just all venture capital. And anyone who thinks that anything with integrity is coming out of there now is out of their fucking mind. It's being eroded every single day. Take your L1 now before it's fucking gone, and it's lied to. They have something called precision healthcare now. It's like inviting the wolves into the chicken hen. It's fucking it's complete insanity what they're doing over there. But
that's
I worry about when I hear you, and I shouldn't say I'm worried about it. I see this amazing thing you're building, and I think, oh my God, what's going to happen in 30 years or 40 years when Matthew's gone and the woke crowd gets a hold of your school?
Well, and so that's part of the, and I fully get that. And that's part of the conversation for all of us as kind of this governance council, which is a fancy way of saying there's like 10 or 12 of us out of the 300 or so current owners that kind of go, hey, how can we kind of serve more, right? Like the whole part of the bigger part of our conversations are, how do we just continue to grow but have everything be completely decentralized and nothing but what's best for the young heroes. And so as an example, so Acton Academy, right? Acton, Lord Acton. I don't know much more about him. I should probably look up more about him and understanding who he is in his life. But he is, if you've ever heard the quote, power corrupts, absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely. That is credited to him, right? So that's why we say Acton. We believe in educational freedom, individual freedom, personal freedom, religious freedom, economic freedom, medical freedom. And that needs to stay a central component, as does the decentralization of everything, right? Our goal on each campus is to empower those young people so that ultimately they're the ones running the campus. The adult is no longer needed. Same thing that's a microcosm from an organizational level. Our goal is that there really isn't any kind of centralized power. There is no hierarchy. There is no mothership that says, do this, do this, do this. What you have is you've got this entire network of individuals who are going, and it doesn't matter if you have one campus, 3 campuses, if you've just launched a campus this year, if you've had your campus for 10 years, it is, I don't know what's working best for you right now. I don't know what's working best for you. I'm going to try this. Great. I'm going to try this too. And then the only thing we do from a kind of a corporate sort of structural standpoint is we all agree we're going to take 1% of our gross every single year. We're going to give that percentage back, into that governance council is going to take a look at that and go, cool, here's this money. What do we do to perpetuate the network? A small portion of it can go to, and I say small, I mean small portion of that will go to any kind of marketing and just kind of letting people know kind of what we're doing. Even that, we want it to be relatively stealth and sort of quiet for a few different reasons. But then the rest of it goes back into kids. So this year you're going to have 20 graduates from Acton Academies around the world they'll have to compete for it. There's no fucking 8th place trophies. But they'll compete for it, and 20 of them will receive $100,000 fellowships from the network to go on to take on their next great adventure. So, and that's
dude,
not college.
That is awesome.
$100,000 for them to go off and just, what's your next great adventure, man? What do you want to do? Make some promises to us on what that looks like.
That's $2 million.
Bingo, right? So it's like, pour that money back into the kids, back into the campuses. It's back into, it's not into anybody's pockets. And that's the beauty. That's the power behind this network. So I agree with you 100%. That power needs to be maintained. And that power is only maintained if the integrity is maintained, which means no lining of anybody's pockets. And that's really what we're all, kind of agreeing to, is like, this isn't going to be a money thing from, I still don't take money from this.
I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but how it goes down is this. 20 years from now, you're pulling into the Best Western and you tip you're the guy who picks up your car from you to park your car, the valet, and you tip him $10, and then when you leave, another valet comes and you give him $5, and someone there is like, did you see that? The founder of the Acton, the founder of these kids schools, I don't know, these I don't know what you call them, the Acton Academy schools, he tipped a white guy $10 and he only tipped the black guy on the way out $5. He's racist. And then the 50 campuses you opened up, they panic and they're like, oh my God, look, we're going to hang 3 of our white students from these trees and kill them in the front yard so that we're not racist. And that's how the whole thing fucking, like,
yeah, for sure.
That's how the whole thing gets out of control. It's like, wait a second. Like, he didn't even know. He's fucking Matthew Beaudreau is fucking blind. He didn't even know how much he was tipping him, you dumb fucks. So and actually the black guy did get $10 and it was the white guy got $5. And now you're hanging white people in your school to make up for what this guy, and that's what scares me in this world we're in. Like,
for sure, man. 100%. Freaking 1,000%. First of all, I'm
sorry, I don't mean to be just throwing grenades.
You're 100% right, dude. So, but these are things that we've got to think about too. So like first, when I walk up to those valets, which one did both of them ask me for my vax passport? Because we got to make sure we put that bullshit in there too. Cause that's coming. So, because otherwise I can't even go to the Best Western. Right. So that's absolutely something that we're aware of and have to keep tabs on. So what part of that decentralization too is understanding that individual owners won't necessarily we have the same foundational beliefs in the young people and their heroes' journeys, unlocking whatever that looks like for them. And us as owners are also going to have their own individual journey. That means that Matt doesn't speak for the entirety of the network unless I'm speaking about something of like, yes, we believe every child is inherently a genius that should be able to, be allowed the opportunity to go on a hero's journey. That across the board, right? Like,
and that's those tenets are written somewhere.
Those are our promises. Yep. Okay. That's exactly it. Those are our promises. That's our mission statement. The minute I go outside of that, I'm no longer an affiliate either. Get the fuck out. It doesn't matter who I am, right? So, but me personally, if I'm speaking to something that I personally believe, I need to be very clear that this is my personal belief and doesn't necessarily represent the greater thing at large. When Tim Kennedy speaks about what his policy or stance is on, Afghanistan and withdrawal of troops, that's not Acton speaking. That's Tim Kennedy speaking. When he's speaking about Apogee Cedar Park and his Acton Academy there, well, then it's all about those heroes and our belief in their journey. Same thing. I've had people that, I get DMs or emails or calls, and people go, "Hey, I just went and checked out the Acton Academy over here, and I walked in, and they've got masks on. I thought you said I thought you said that you are against masks." And so I've got to differentiate and just go, look, man, that's their owner, that wherever they are, decide in that community deciding that they're going to do that, and they have every right to do that. That's part of that whole freedom thing, is I want
Right.
you to have the freedom to do that if you want. Like,
Right.
that's great. And by the way, everybody's got freedom to do that on our campus if they want to. They just happen to not want to,
Right.
because they also have the freedom not to do it.
Right.
And that's the difference. So that's different than the Acton Academy philosophy. That's Matt's saying, hey, as the leader of these campuses, free to do what you want to do. But it's those core tenets, those core principles, those core promises, those core beliefs that we all hang our hat on together collectively.
Did you start this whole thing because you had kids?
Yeah, man. I was in the game, I was in the game of schools. So I saw the game and had my own kids and went, well, they're not going to be involved in that game.
Can you
So,
give me more details? Because I heard you
yeah.
say your kids are the reason.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
what does that mean?
Yeah. So I was in traditional, conventional schools, right? And actually, before that, I was at Stanford University working there for a while too, and then went into conventional schools as conventional school teacher, conventional school administrator. So I understood the game of school, and as I started to ask, well, why are we continuously doing this? Why can't I usurp from the inside? Why do we, when the world is doing this, why the hell are we still doing this? Why do I have to, I'm mentoring this young man and trying to help him. When he goes home, his parents are telling him to get out and deal drugs on the porch. And, he's got to decide, at what point he gets involved in the family gang and all this stuff. And I'm trying to mentor him out of that. Why do I have to make sure he has algebra to save his life versus any of my conversations? Like, why is that bad? Like, so I'm asking all these questions, right? And once I kind of started figuring out the answers to that, it was right about the same time when my oldest was getting to be, it was close enough to where she was getting to be school age. And so for me, it was
Like 5?
Yep,
Okay.
exactly. And so it was like, okay, well, she's not going to come into this mess. So then what? Right. I don't believe in complaining and whining. It's cool. I need to be responsible for figuring out what the alternative is going to be. And so alternative is going to be, do we homeschool and figure that out? Or is there something else that I think is even more advantageous? And that's, ultimately that was the genesis of it. Once I figured out what Acton was, and it was related to everything I had always wanted to do and been trying to do in that game of school as it was, I'm not going to compromise for what I do for my kids. That just wasn't, that's non-negotiable. So it was like, cool, I will build this for them. And by the way, if I build this for them, and that means there's 10 kids, and that's all we had, great, then so be it. I'm building it for my kids. It just so happened that more and more people, were excited about it too. And then once more and more people were excited about it, and more young heroes started having transformational sort of results as far as who they were, their self-confidence, their self-awareness, all those things. Just kind of went from there, and now
How
more and more people are waking up to that game though.
how old's your daughter now?
My oldest is 10. She'll be 11 in January. So I got a 10 and 8 and a 5. Two girls and a boy.
So this shit is growing fast.
Wickedly. Yeah.
How do you have time to even do a podcast?
This is all part of the mission, man. It's all inclusive. I don't do the whole balance thing. This is all inclusive. Everything I do is same thing, man. This mission.
The name of your podcast is called Essential 11?
The Essential 11. Yes, sir.
And why do you call it that?
So so as I've been building these schools, I've not taken any money from these schools. Like you, I like communication, right? And so I've been a keynote speaker and consultant for companies all over the world. So I've done, almost 400 keynotes in the last 7 years.
Wow.
All over the world. So that's how I've been providing for my family and the money over here. And then when I'm home, we're building out the schools. And so I had the good fortune to work with a phenomenal research company as I was doing these keynotes, and it's a team of PhDs that just studies generational trends, and they have generational research, and I got to kind of work in that context. So I actually utilized that research team and said, look, I'm gonna do a podcast, and I really just want to get I want to help young people get the answers that they want to questions that they've got, and I want to go to, you know, some of the world's best minds and get those answers and just kind of get everybody's take. It was really kind of inspired by like Tribe of Mentors, right? Tim Ferriss's kind of book. So we utilized that research firm, and went to 1,500 young people, and it was ages 13 to 22 all across America. And we just said, hey, you know, if we're going to go, it was essentially like, if we're going to these brilliant people, like, what do you want to know? What kind of like, what do you want to hear from them? What kind of advice do you want? And so we kind of, you know, cultivated the responses on that and came up with what we called the essential 11 questions. And so then we used the essential 11 questions as the framework for the conversation. And most of the time I don't have to go number 1, number 2, number 3, right? It just, it ends up being,
I've never seen you do that.
Yeah. This conversational flow. I've only had to do that a couple times when it's like, you know, Greenfield was out walking and he's like, dude, I've only got 15 minutes. I'm like, fuck it, we'll just kind of go through the list, man. We'll just kind of rock through, you know, and just kind of go down the list like that. And so I've had to do that, but for the most part, it's just, we have a conversation and those all kind of come up, you know, and we're able to kind of weave those in. So it's cool, man, because everybody's got different responses and, you know, based on their perspectives and their stories. And so, yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun, man.
Wow.
It's really cool.
So I want to go back to this reason thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say I feel bad when I say stuff to people, because I get on my high horse on my Instagram or on my podcast or just in my day-to-day life. I don't care that like you give your kids Twinkies.
Yeah.
What I care is that you should know that there's another way. I don't care that you give your kid Gatorade. I want you to know that there's another way. Like this guy, Matthew Beaudreau, he started a school for his kids. You can tell your kid, hey, there's absolutely no TV when the sun's out, ever.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can, and you will help your kid. Kids love boundaries and rules.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell your kid, hey, you will only drink water in my house.
Yep.
You will never drink another kind of liquid in my house. It's yours. It's your Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
This fucking guy, Matthew Beaudreau, built a fucking school for his kids. I'm not saying you have to do that, but don't fucking argue your limitations.
It's exactly
like it scares the shit out of me, and I feel fucking like a piece of shit parent hearing him say that, but I'm doing the best I can do. And so don't let me make you feel like a piece of shit also, because there's levels to this shit, and Matthew's at the highest level and he's fucking starting a school and all of us are benefiting from it. But don't argue your limitations and say that there's a food drought. I don't have enough money. I don't know how to say no. I do not stop. Stop arguing your limitations and stop arguing your kids' limitations. We have so much potential.
That's right. And what sucks is when you argue your limitations or you operate out of this thought that you've got an endless amount of limitations, your kids learn that too, right?
Yeah,
they learn that from you. They can learn that, you know what, boundaries are just meant to be, boundaries are meant to be held over here and limits are meant to be pushed over here. But they've got to see you living from that paradigm before they actually believe it. I always tell people kids will, do what you do before they ever do what you say. Right. And it was, and that was something that I remember saying that to Tito Ortiz too, when he was on, and he's like, holy shit, man. And he pulled out this sign that was in his bedroom and it was like basically that same kind of thing. And it's like, dude, that is quite literally the case. And I've messed stuff up too. There's no such thing as a perfect parent at all, but operating out of those limiting beliefs is going to be the first thing that they learn, man. If you're doing it by example, vice versa, doing the right shit, they're going to be on it.
It's interesting you say that. So the fighting with your what, not your wife, the rhetorical wife, the fighting with your wife in front of your kids, you now have an amazing opportunity to show your kids what it's like to make up. So you yell at your wife, she left the refrigerator door open and the 3 kids are sitting there and you're like, dude, we're trying to save money on electricity. Can you please close the refrigerator? This is the 10th time I've told you. And then you see your kids are looking and you're like, oh, fuck.
Yep.
Don't immediately be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah.
And flip the script. take a few deep breaths, go take a piss, come back and be like, honey, that was right. So try to do it so your kids don't know you're fucking hamming it up, but ham that shit up. I am so sorry.
Yep.
And if your wife doesn't accept your apology, you don't get mad at her. You accept that too.
Totally.
You fucking get on the high road and be a good example for your kids. Don't be hard on yourself.
Nope.
You can fix everything.
You can fix it, but
you can turn it into a positive.
But you need
I had no business yelling at you, honey. You deserve better than that.
Work. Exactly. And you need to do the work to do it though, because you make that apology, right? And you can openly say, man, kids, the way I just handled that was bullshit. This is what I should have done right here. And then the most important part is that you try not to do that again.
Yes.
Right. If you do it again the next day,
and
then you do it the next day, the kids don't believe you, because what you do and what you say are not the same thing. If I walk up to Sevan every single day and go, dude, I love you, and then I punch you in the face.
Yeah.
Dude, I love you. Bam. And I punch you in the face. Right. All you're learning is that it's cool what he says, but ultimately he's going to fucking hit me in the face. Right. Like it's the same thing. It's your
I don't want anyone loving me.
Exactly right. Yeah. Love sounds awful. Yeah, man. So it's that. It's, you know, it's the consistency, and that's what kills. I mean, it's just like fitness, right? And health and fitness is consistency matters. And people struggle with consistency, and it's no different in parenting, but it's that consistency, man.
At your first fight, Bruce Buffer was there?
Yeah, dude, he was the announcer.
Was he nobody?
No, he was still Bruce Buffer. Like he was still Bruce Buffer. I mean, UFC wasn't as big as it is now. UFC was, I think.
Is he cool? He's 50. So weird. He's like a Barbie doll, kind of, like, just because of the role he plays.
For sure,
like,
man.
Publicly, he's so one-dimensional.
He's very theatrical. He's very theatrical. He's very over the top. And he can be kind of theatrical even in conversation, but he's a good guy. He's a cool guy. I've had multiple interactions with him, but not so much where I can go, look, Bruce Buffer is a good friend of mine, and here's who he really is down deep. I don't have that kind of relationship with him. But he's always been a good dude. But yeah, UFC was, I think, 50, 60 ish events in maybe at that point. And that was, they weren't doing them every weekend like they do now. Right. And so it was, cause it was right about 2000. My first fight was 2005. Well, all of them were 2005 and 2006. We're all within a truncated space. So it was 2005. And so it was right about to give context for fans, I had that fight. And then I think the next week I was in Vegas at the fights. And it was like Liddell versus Jeremy Horn too. It was that GSP was like he was like this up and coming guy. And so it was that.
How are you on time?
I'm good, man. I wanted to be able to just chat as long as you wanted to chat today. So
okay, I have two more things I'd like to bring up.
Go for it, man.
When I worked in a home for disabled adults, one of the things I worked there for 5 years. I lived in the driveway in my car there. I started at $7 an hour, and when I left, I had 20 people working for me and was making $21 an hour, just rich as fuck.
Totally.
Like 15,000 in the bank, still eating sandwiches out of the dumpster.
Yeah,
killing it. Buy my girlfriend whatever coffee she wanted. Fuck, the good old days. Anyway, so one of the things was you don't want to take power from people. Like if someone says to you, and I hear this a lot in your talk with how you deal with kids, I think, and I just thought it was an interesting, different spin on it. Like, you don't want to take power from people. What does that mean? That means when I tell my kid, hey, I signed you up for a jiu-jitsu tournament, he says, I don't want to do it. I just say, okay. Then the day before I said, hey, tomorrow we're going to the jiu-jitsu tournament. He says, okay, I don't want to do it. Then we wake up in the morning and we get in the car and I get him dressed and we're driving there. He says, I don't want to do it. And I just say, okay. And there's nothing for me to say. I don't have to respond. I don't have to take power from him. I don't have to say, you have to do it. That's taking power from him. I don't have to say, you don't have to do it. That's taking power from him. I just keep moving towards the target. Mm-hmm. And as we get closer, he ups the ante on me. It's 10 minutes before his first jiu-jitsu match in the history of his life in a public setting. It's his first tournament. And he says, do I have to do it? And I just look at him and I stay quiet because I have nothing to say. I don't know what to say. Mm-hmm. Because he doesn't have to do it. Mm-hmm. But I'm also not going to tell him he has to do it or doesn't have to do it because I don't want to take it. It's him. Mm-hmm. It's all on him. Mm-hmm. I know it's safe. I'm not gonna, I'm looking around, I'm making sure no one's going to hurt him. I'm going to stay close to him. I'm not enjoying the process either. I don't want him to do it either.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. Totally.
But fuck, it's not me who has to go out there.
Yeah.
So I need to shut the fuck up and suck it up. And then eventually I said, hey, I love you. I said, you just do you.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And he goes out there and does his first match, and he comes off, and he's like, oh, the next thing out of his mouth is, when's my next one? I go in like 3 minutes. He said, okay. And then he does his next one, and then we get in the car, we're driving home, and I go, how was that? He goes, man, I was shaking. And I go, is it hard to do jujitsu when you're shaking? He goes, no, it stops as soon as you get out there. When they say go, it stops. He goes, the whole time up to it. I go, wow. I go, that sounds nuts. I go, like, you want to run away shake? He goes, yeah. And then I'm like, oh, you just redirect that into, and I just talked to him about it. Like you're saying, the Socratic, ask questions, help him with some ideas that I think maybe it might be, but I never take the power from him. Yeah.
I love that. And it's the integrity of that whole situation. That goes back to kind of what we're talking about, where there's no, they don't have the sovereignty yet at that age. They don't know what they don't know. They don't have, so you're not stripping the power, but you're still,
or the accountability. It's all on him.
Accountability, right?
Yes.
And so you allow all that to take place, and then the learning that comes out of that. There are too many parents who don't want. This is part of what we talk about at our informational sessions, right? Like, we'll get 100 families that'll come through for an informational session in a month thinking that they want their kids here. And I actually start with like a whole top 10 reasons you probably don't want to be here. I actually try to get people out.
Oh, I like this.
And the reason I do that is because I know for a fact most parents don't actually want their kids to go through something like that. They don't want that because they want to save, they want to protect, they want a bubble, they want a helicopter, they want to, whatever you want to call it. And however they're approaching it, they want to just have this protection, which I fully get, but they're not willing to let their kids go forward and fail. Right? And they really don't actually want that to happen. So they'll acquiesce to those things early. And that's where you get to a situation where, your kid doesn't take on responsibility. The kid doesn't ever want to go outside. The kid doesn't want to, push themselves to do harder and harder things because they've never had to. They don't understand the freaking glory that comes out of pushing through some hard shit and coming out the other side going, okay, now I'm different. And this is cool.
And he was different.
He's different.
Totally, totally 100%. Different.
And
totally
that's
different kid.
That's called confidence, by the way, right? Like, that's what that is. Confidence doesn't happen unless you actually do some shit.
And he lost both his matches.
Doesn't matter.
And he was totally different kid for the better. Like 100%. Nuts.
100%. Far more confident.
Yeah.
Far more confident. And that's what parents need to be able to foster. And most do not want to do that. They want to avoid it. And now you get to these, so we've got these low bar.
And if he would, and Matthew, if he wouldn't have done it and he would have started crying, I wouldn't have cared. I would have let him come run in my arms and held him and kissed him. And been like, I'm so proud of you that we made it this far. We'll try again next month.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Because you would have seen, okay, look, there's the breaking point right there, and then we'll try again later. And
it was his decision.
Further and further.
And it's his decision.
Yeah,
you ran off if he would have run off, and it's happened.
Yeah, it's a nuanced game, man. But it's like you said, it's never stripping that power and putting more and more small dragons in front of them to slay. And you should never fucking apologize for building up a dragon slayer when real fucking dragons exist out there right now. Like, you have to have that. We have so many mental midgets in our adults, right, that are building further and further down that lineage of that mental midgetism. And I had, so you got the apogee hat on, right? And so Tim and I have this mentorship program that we run for young men. And I had a young man get on a Zoom call with me that, was maybe going to sign up for it. And he's 15 years old, and mom comes on the Zoom and she's like, he's being kind of shy right now. And he's in his bed, dude, with the covers over his head. He's 15. He's 15. We have 15-year-olds that are running, multiple businesses.
And you saw the whole reason in one thing. It's because his mom's interfering. His
mom's interfering and has for 15 years. I'm like, I have no desire to, he cannot be part of this program. Sorry. Like, there's just no way. I can't fix that. You have set a foundation of 15 years of just a foundation that I'm not going to tell you anything's going to be able to he's going to have to get a breaking point where he decides enough is enough. I'm going to change this. There's nothing I can do that's going to help him.
A friend of mine brought one of my best friends in the whole world. He's an amazing guy. God, I hope he's not listening to this. Actually, it doesn't matter. He brought his kid over to my house, and I knew his kid was coming to my house, and I bought his kid one of those do you know those spinners that kids would play with? You spin them in
Yeah.
your hands.
Yep.
And I bought him one of those, and it was an expensive one, like 40, 50 bucks. It was all made of steel, and it was super intricate, and it did all these cool things.
Yeah.
It was so fucking neat.
Yeah.
And I gave it to him, and the kid took it and didn't say thank you. And the dad told him to say thank you, and he wouldn't. Dad told him to say thank you, and he wouldn't. And he goes, oh, he'll come back and say thank you later. And it was great for me because I just thought to myself, like, yeah, like I would take that from my kid, and I would be like, dude, you know, you can't have this until you look him in his eyes, shake his hand, and say thank you. It's part of just, and he let his kid off the hook for that. And I probably should have said something to him in the thing, but people should know there is no homeostasis. It's not like he got away with something. It's you taught him something bad.
Bingo.
With kids, yeah, it's always you are either doing something good for your kid or doing something bad for your kid.
That's
right. There's never never like, oh, we didn't learn anything. Dude, you are crazy if you don't think they learned something.
You are full of shit. Yes.
Yeah.
Man. Set that foundation early. I very much agree with Jordan Peterson has this whole thing about like parenting in the early years. And, you know, he's in those first 5-6 years, you are setting this foundation for who this person is going to be. And part of your job, your biggest job right there is to make sure they are not an asshole, right?
Yes.
Make sure that they are a likable human, because that's going to do them good in the long run. That is going to make it so they so that people want to be around them, that people will listen to them, right? That they'll have influence, that they'll have relationships, that they'll have opportunities, right? If you allow them to be just this ungrateful asshole, you know, human being, you are inherently limiting their opportunities. You are increasing exponentially the chance that they're going to be broken adults. Frederick Douglass said it's easier to build strong men or build strong kids than it is to fix broken men, right? And that's absolutely it's absolutely true, right? So you set that foundation early. Those things are non-negotiable. Manners are non-negotiable. Looking somebody in the eye, communicating, saying thank you, shaking hands, those things are non-negotiable. And it just sets up the foundation for actual confidence and relationships moving forward, right? We are very much 100%, man. There is no way in hell my kid would have touched that thing ever. And that would have been right there. Like it would have been like, nope, you're going to say it before we even move on to anything else. We're going to stand here and make this awkward as shit until you do this. You don't have a choice.
And it's an easy win for your kid.
Super easy.
You're not asking them to get out of the car and punch someone.
Super easy. Super easy.
Like you're going to make eye contact, say thank you, and you're going to get the best spinner in your life. It's so easy.
Bingo. That's literally how we start our morning meetings on campus. When I say morning meetings, the studios on this campus, whether it's the young ones that are 4 or 5, 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 12, 18, whatever it is, they literally are starting in a circle. They stand up, they look the next person in the eye, they say, good morning, Sevan. Sevan says, good morning, Matt. They look each other in the eye, they shake hands, they go around the circle and do that. And then they launch the day, right? Because those things are foundational to just making things happen. And it's bananas because so many people don't do it. We have had people walk into this campus. We've had this happen more than once, where we have somebody come onto this campus for an informational session, right? They're coming in because they want to, they're exploring potentially sending their kids here to this school. And, they go through all this, and then I'll go, hey, if you want to go take if you want to take a break from the questions and you want to go take a tour kind of the campus, you're not going to walk into where the studios are. It's a sacred space for these young people. But if you want to just kind of take a peek in, walk around, see what the campus looks like, go for it. We've got some of our high schoolers that are over here. They'll take you around. They'll answer any questions that you got, and so the high schoolers take them.
Oh, wow. Right? They're your docents. The
100%,
kids are the
100%.
docents for the school. That is so awesome.
The younger, the better, right? Because if they're capable and they can do that.
Yes.
And so the kids take them around. And, they're walking up saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. Nice to meet you here. Let me walk you around. I have had multiple times where we've had that I've had a gentleman come back to me and go, hey, I need to hire that kid. How old is that kid? Like, I need to hire him, right? I need to hire him right now. We normally only hire college graduates. How old is that kid? Because as soon as he's 18, like, I need him to come work for me, right? We have had parents who were driving by and it just happened to come in, and now we don't even have, don't have the ability to do that anymore because we have such a massive interest. We have to go through the informational sessions. But even prior to that, we had parents that, drove by the campus and went, what the hell is this? Got out, walked up, and were greeted by, an 8-year-old, 9-year-old that said, hi, my name is so-and-so. Nice to meet you. Are you here to meet, Mr. Matt? Let me show you where he is, right? And they bring him in and they walk in and they go, what the hell just happened? We were about to move out of the state of California, but that's ridiculous. And is that what you guys do here? Like, we're going to stay and our kids are going to go here. I mean, all of these things are real things. And it's literally just because our young people have the confidence and the awareness and the understanding to go, hey, I'm going to look somebody in the eye. I'm going to shake their hands. I'm going to say, nice to meet you. I'm going to be a normal human being. And you would think we're introducing people to Jesus.
Yeah.
Not the Jesus that commented on the shot earlier, but like Jesus, the deity kind of deal, right? Like you would
think the one with the sandals.
Right. Because it's so unheard of for young people to have that kind of understanding and those kind of manners, which is, it doesn't say a lot about us. It says a lot about society and where we've kind of gone. Right. But it also says a lot about the opportunity for our young people then who will take on that massive responsibility, who are willing to be those good humans and hold themselves to those standards of integrity. The gap that it's going to create for them moving forward versus their counterparts, it's ridiculous. It's compound interest of being a good human young, right? It's like investing early. And the compound interest by the time you're 70, and you've put that $7,000 a month into that mutual fund and you got $20 million. It's that same thing. You put that foundational goodness of humanity in them young. The payoff on that is ridiculously high.
How much does it cost to start one of these schools?
The IP, to gain access to the IP and to the network. And what I mean by the network is, you gain access to every freaking conversation we've ever had, every system, everything the quests, the big projects that we're trying and continue to try, the forums where we're connecting with other owners around the world. I think it's like $15,000 to come in and get the IP. But then the real cost is, well, then what's next, right? It's the cost of the buildings, it's the cost of the people, it's all of that kind of stuff. But we don't want the entry to be crazy big. You come in.
I'm living in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I have hundreds of millions of dollars, and I have these kids. Can I hire someone to open one of these schools for me?
Oh, of course.
I can just find someone.
You find somebody.
Like, I want my kids to go to this school, but I don't want to move back to California.
Yeah.
And I can afford it, and I want to start one of these schools.
Totally. 100%. And if there's not, so you can check out and see if there is one that's already open near you. Otherwise, yeah, if you would like to start some, then you bet you can find, but it's about finding the right people. Just like we're looking to find the right people for the network. And when parents come to my campus, I'm looking for the right parents because I want the right mindset and I want the right mindset of the young heroes. It's that same thing. You want to find, you probably don't want a teacher. If you're going to have somebody running it for you, you probably don't want to pull somebody that's been a teacher for 30 years, right? Because they've been trained in one particular way. You want to find the right folks, but absolutely.
Where's a list of all of these schools? I've only been to your site where I see those three. Is there a website that has every school?
You go to actonacademy.org and there's a search function.
Acton. Yep. When I dress my 7-year-old, I basically dress him every day. I go in the bedroom with him. I pick out his underwear with him, his pants, his shirt. I put it all on him. I hug him. I kiss him. I love on him. It's like my time with him. Yep. And at the age of 5, he can't even put his shirt on because I do it for him every morning. But my 2-year-olds can get themselves dressed. And I see that there's this with a benign neglect. If you don't do a benign neglect, I shorted my kid. It's not a big deal. I'm not judging myself for it. I'm just using it as an example. Even to this day, I still do it knowing that, like, I'm fucking him. I don't care. It's my selfish way of, I just want that time with him.
My thing.
When I took him to his first jiu-jitsu tournament, there's a moment where you have to let the kid go and they walk next to you for about 50 yards in this big fucking auditorium with thousands of people. But I get to stay next to him the whole time. He's 6 and I'm only 2 feet away from him, but he's on the other side of like one of those ropes.
Yeah.
And I'm holding on to him as they're going to take him away. And one of the other parents who's my buddy Josh, who's like twice the size of me. You know, I'm a
Yeah.
150-pound guy. This guy's maybe almost 300 pounds. He's like got my shoulder, and him and Mike and his kid's the same age as my kid. And the kids are going, and I won't let go of my kid's hand.
Yeah.
And this guy, Josh, is pulling my shoulder. He's like, dude, let go of your kid. I'm like, what do you mean? I'll just walk with him with my, one hand on either side of the rope. We can just do it. Dude. And I look at him, I go, dude, I still get him dressed in the morning. He's like, yeah, you need to stop that shit too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he fucking just like, let go of your son. You know what I mean? And I almost start crying, and my kid's only 5 feet from me.
Yes.
And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on?
Totally.
And my buddy's like, dude, he's right there. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
And I'm exaggerating a little bit for the sake of the story, but it was such a, like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. I get it. It's hard for parents.
Yes.
It's
absolutely is. And
it's
we're
like,
told that the world is scarier and scarier, so it gets harder and harder. I get it.
But you got, if you got to push yourself out of the comfort zone too as a parent.
Bingo. You have to. You've got to do that. Otherwise, that's exactly what you're doing. Otherwise, you're handicapping them.
There's this Polish Jew, I don't know what he is, psychologist. I'm sure you know who he is. I cannot fucking remember his name. I watched a bunch of his videos. He's older now. He's probably 70 or 80. He's got thick black curly hair.
Polish Jew psychologist, black curly hair.
He says it talks a lot about parenting. I really like him. There's some things where he wants to argue. He does these big talks in these auditoriums. He does a lot of child psychology. What's his name?
Alfie
Maybe that's
Cohn?
maybe that's who it is. I'm going to type in, I'm going to see if that's him. He's probably 80 now, 70. I just found him recently. He looks great. He has really thick hair. Let me see if,
I don't know if he's that old. I don't know if Alfie's that old. Alfie might be, Alfie's in his 60s, I think.
No, but it could look like that guy.
Okay.
But older.
Okay.
God, I wish I could remember this guy. Super famous. He was blowing up in my algorithm, and YouTube. Anyway, he said this thing that I'm so curious what you think about. He basically said, he explains that when you're born as a kid, you are trying to stay alive, and you lose yourself because you are not willing to take the risks to stay yourself because you need your parents to stay alive. So you need your mom and dad for food and protection. And so you're willing to jump through any hoops to stay alive. And because of the hoops that parents make their kids jump through, they lose themselves. He explains it so well. I have to find it. It's such a beautiful explanation. And there were some great lessons in parenting in there about how to, but I tie it to this thing about taking power from your kids again, like making decisions for them that really they should be making for themselves. And like it would have been so easy just to react, and really you have to be able to create space, and you probably have to have a meditative practice to be a great parent, because your kids are going to ask you things that you really shouldn't answer. Do I have to do the jiu-jitsu tournament?
Right.
There's nothing for you to say there. Like you're going to, it's like this. Anyway, do you have any thoughts on that about people who, about that? It's like, like kids who are beaten think that it's okay to be beaten until they're like 20. Then they're like, because it was how they survived, right?
Yeah.
They just think it's normal.
They think that's a normal deal. I see what.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see what you're saying, and I think it really does go back to, obviously they need their basic needs met, but I think it really does go.
Yeah,
it goes back to that whole. In my head, anyways, I feel like it goes back to that whole, like, I'm gonna do first, and then I'm gonna show you why we do this together, and we'll have conversations around it. Right? They're gonna do what you do before you do what you say, kind of deal. I think it really goes back to that, and leading by example, and having conversations with them early on to get to where understanding ultimately takes place. But you're laying out, you're only laying out the rules that are kind of those foundational non-negotiables. After that, it's laying out, potential for decisions. I don't know. I would have to listen to, I want to see
I'm gonna find.
how he frames that, I guess.
What are some non-negotiables you have with your kids?
We actually have
I never thought of it like that.
we actually have like a foundation, like Beaudreau family rules. We actually have a family rule set that is it's framed on our wall, and it's the non-negotiables for just who we are as a family, who we are as a group, and that's who we are collectively. But it's more importantly, it's who we are individually. And so that means those are the non-negotiables for all of us, which means I go, hey, hey, Loudon, you know, this rule states this, and so I need you to, to buy. There's one of our rules is no complaining, fix it. Right? It's not worth complaining about. We're not going to complain about things. We're going to come with a proposed solution, right? And you can ask for help on some things, and we can walk through a thought exercise of how do we fix this and make this better. But there's no complaining about it. There's no whining. We just come with, okay, this is a situation that I don't really dig, and I either need to understand why the situation is here, or I need to figure out a solution on how to make it better. Right? That's a non-negotiable in our house. The flip side of that, though, is that they have the ability to hold us to those standards as well, and they're expected to, right? So if one of our rules is to be an emotional ninja, right? That's one of the rules in our house, and all that means is that we know we're responsible for how we react to any scenario. Ultimately, it's up to us to decide how we view something, right? And it's our reaction to whatever that is going to determine our perspective, or is going to determine how we move forward, and it's going to build our perspective. So if that mom leaves the refrigerator open and daddy loses his shit because mom left the refrigerator open, I was not an emotional. They actually have the ability to call me out in that moment and go, Dad, literally, like, I just yelled at mom and said, what the hell? We're trying to save this electricity. That same example from earlier, they have the ability to go, Dad, rule number 3 is to be an emotional ninja, and you're not doing that right now. They have the ability to remind. So it's almost like our contract, our covenant with one another. And so those kind of things, it's really gets down into those values of that core integrity and honesty, and, the emotional control and not whining, and having perspective and doing the right thing, always being the right thing. We have those rules literally set out for us. I can send them to you if you want.
Yeah, I would love to see that. How did you come up with them?
We had a conversation. It's just like, who do we want to be? And it was a conversation around the dinner table, right? It was like, what do we think good people do? I mean, it was just very basic. It was just, what do we think good people do? Like, who do we want to be? If we could be the best possible people we could be, what are some of the things that we'd want to do? And so it was it was all 5 of us kind of coming up with some basic ideas. And, as the emotional ninja was more my way of kind of encompassing, what had essentially come out of the conversation around our emotional responses. And so we just kind of put fun names to all of those, and slapped 11 of those together, which is kind of funny too, because we got 11 of them.
Oh,
like the essential 11. But yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I just looked up the definition of the word integrity. I use the word a lot, and a couple of the definitions here are incorruptible, firm adherence to a code, especially a moral code or artistic values. It says the quality of being honest and fair. I don't really like the word fair. A state of being complete or whole. Do you remember the first person you met who had integrity? Do you remember meeting someone and being like, oh shit?
A really good question, man.
Like when you really met someone who was honest,
yeah,
you're like, wow, this is fucking nuts.
Yeah. And just the difference is real, because I'm sure I probably did, but meeting that person, or not just meeting it, but realizing that, or seeing that is a different thing, because I probably did know some more, but gosh.
Yeah. Of course. That's a really good point. You probably met 1,000 of them, and then one day you see it in someone and you're just like, what the fuck? Whoa. Like it just hits you like a brick. You're like, I want to be like that.
Yeah, just kind of those actions and those words are fucking right on top of each other, right? There's no marriage. God, I don't know if I can pick out oh, so yeah, like this was the guy, or this is what I remembered. I don't know if I have that.
I was raised to be nice.
Yeah. Oh,
At the
for sure.
and it cost me my integrity.
Yeah, for sure. You're raised to be a good boy.
And I was very nice.
Right.
I was very nice. And it worked out very well for me. It was like you said, eye contact, shake hands, be pleasant. But I did it at the but I did it at the price of integrity.
And
It cost me my integrity.
that's right.
To
And so
avoid
that,
hurting other people's feelings and or what I perceive to be like how Katie Couric just lost all of her integrity.
yeah,
Did you follow that story?
a little.
Okay, so basically Ruth Bader Ginsburg said that Kaepernick is a complete douchebag. I'm
Right.
paraphrasing.
Yeah.
Like dropping a knee is like, and since she was the poster child for the left,
Yeah.
Katie Couric took it on herself to say, oh, she was too old. She didn't mean that. She didn't know what she was saying, and she buried it. And with through that, I mean that's like the epitome. That's like. And I was guilty of that as a kid too, not on that scale. But that Katie Couric now has no integrity, zero, gone, flushed her just your shit down the toilet.
Yep. It only takes that. It only takes that one freaking. Only takes that one.
And she's still trying to justify it.
Yeah,
justifying it's even worse. Like to be nice. Like
Yep. Totally.
I didn't tell Hitler to fuck off because I didn't want to be rude and a few thousand Jews burned.
Totally.
Yeah, like what?
Totally. And that's what gets exact. So like that's where the nuance is, dude. It's so hard because you like it's foundational. If my kids are going to be those, they need to have that. Hey, I'm going to look you in the eye. I'm going to shake your hand. I'm going to say nice to meet you. And then equally on the other side, as soon as that person shows themselves to be, to lack integrity, I need to be willing to say, okay, cool. Here's how this needs to change. Otherwise, our relationship together is no longer in existence, right? Like they need to have that backbone too. It's developing both of those things simultaneously. Right? It's that backbone. When most people
need a backbone.
You need a backbone, and you have no ability to develop a backbone in government schools. You are rewarded. You get extra bonus points for just being nice, following directions. And the best one at following directions is the winner, right? You get your, you followed your little rubric, you get your stuff here. You were the quietest one in line. It's all about just everybody learn to follow directions, and the better you can follow directions, the better human you are, and the teachers are taught to exacerbate that too, right? It's all classroom. You don't go through a teaching credential program to learn child development and how people actually learn and grow. You go through on how to manage behaviors of young people and continuously manage their behaviors essentially into subservience. Like that's what that whole thing is about, right? So you get these good obeying young people, which then all of a sudden fucking surprises people that we have a society who is so fraught with people who are willing to just obey and not think and not question. And then somebody that's not doing a good job following the rules, well, then there's got to be some sort of punishment. They've got to have some sort of detention, right? We wonder why that shit happens.
And isn't it interesting that the least educated demographics by fucking race and ethnicity are the best critical thinkers and the ones avoiding doing what the government is saying? Mm-hmm. There's this narrative going that, and there's black skinned melanated people pushing this narrative, and I challenge this narrative. They're saying that black people don't trust the government because of what happened in Tuskegee, and they give all these fucking examples where black people were used. I'm going to say, eat a dick. Yep. I'm going to tell you that these fucking people, because of their cultural heritage, it's not that they don't trust the government. It's that they're fantastic critical thinkers. This is more of just that fucking narrative that black people aren't smart. It's soft bigotry. Mm-hmm. Because a black person doesn't know in general, you're saying they don't know the fucking chemistry's chart of elements, that they're not smart and that they can't critically think. You're a fucking idiot. You're a fucking racist moron. They can't register to vote. They can't use compute. Shut the fuck up.
Totally.
And telling me it's because of what the government did to them. How about just that they're fucking smart and they can critically think because they weren't brainwashed by the school system? When have you ever met a fucking black man on the street who couldn't fucking articulate himself 10,000 times better than the white dude? You want to be racist?
True. Yeah, and go to your college. Go to your college. That's what I love about what Will Witt does, right? Go to the college.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Go to the college campus and listen to them and see if they can articulate a point. The majority of them, it's just they're parroting, they're parroting horseshit, but there is no
and they have a fucking backbone.
Yep. Bingo.
The thing that white kids don't have. And why? Because they're brainwashed. And anyway, and it has nothing to do with color. I'm sorry to say it by color. I'm just kind of appeasing the demographic. It has to do with just the protocol and the culture of where they were raised.
Yep, that's exactly it. That's
Fits perfect.
exactly it, man.
Someone here, Leslie Smith, is asking any suggestions for helping a 13-year-old who's extremely introverted.
Yeah. So is that introverted as in code for doesn't want to do anything, or is that introverted? Right. So what we find a lot of times is parents use code words, right? And they'll kind of say, hey, my child is, my child is very extroverted when they really mean I've raised an asshole. And I'm not saying Leslie is
I want to give one quick example. My kid, I can't believe your kid eats vegetables. My kid doesn't eat vegetables. That's
yep.
And I want to say gently to Leslie, like, that's what concerns me. Like, then don't feed your kid anything. Well, what do you mean he has to eat? Well, yeah, he has to eat vegetables. Well, he won't eat them. Well, then he's not going to fucking eat.
Sure.
Like,
yep.
Like I don't like,
for sure.
Like, he had rice and broccoli and some steak on the plate, and he's still hungry, and there's broccoli on the plate still. Okay, eat the broccoli. I mean, you are the fucking parent. How do you get your kid not to watch the iPad?
Take away the iPad.
There's no iPad. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you want me to. Yeah, so when you say he's introverted, Leslie, I don't know your situation, but I just want to say it's because you let him be introverted. You're speaking up for him or something.
And that's the whole. And so that's where that's where the nuance comes in, but that's where that self-awareness comes in on the parent side, right? Is it just introverted as in this person? I mean, I have introverted students on this campus that are the most self-confident and self-aware young people. They just know they naturally are really quiet and would be no problem keeping to themselves, reading some books, working really hard on things. They're nice. They'll say hi to people, whatever, but it just doesn't charge them up. They're naturally more introverted, but at the same time, if they've got to go make a pitch because their business needs money and we're going to have, developers on site, and that's part of this next project, then they're going to go, okay, well, I need to go ahead and be extroverted for this. I'm introverted human being, but I'm going to need to do this because this is something that still needs to get done. Right. So that's introverted, and that's fine. There's people that are introverts, and that's great. Some of the best keynote speakers I ever met are truly introverted people, but they're really, really good at communicating. And you would see them on stage and be like, oh my gosh, that person probably is just like the life of the party extrovert. No, they actually don't ever go out ever. They'd rather stay inside, stay with their family, just kind of stay quiet. Like, that's different. Is an introvert because they'd rather hole away. They have the iPad or the video games to go just, and they want to go put all their effort. Like, that's a different kind of deal. So I would just kind of push back on, like, what does that actually mean to be introverted versus, what are you saying? Like, decode what that actually means. My child is an introvert.
We're back to Socratic discussion.
Mm-hmm.
That he's asking for a definition of a word instead of making an assumption.
Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
Yeah. What does that mean? Is it you? Is it him? Is it you projecting onto him as introverted? Is he really introverted? Did he say he's introverted? Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Introversion has more to do with where you get your energy from. Being shy or having social anxiety is a different thing altogether. I've been contemplating the current generation's find myself problem. Growing up, we weren't exposed to many different ways of life. So by the time we get out of college, we are looking for exposure. That was, I'm just reading the comments. Did you know we're live right now, Matthew?
For experiences. Oh, cool, man. Awesome. I mean, that's great. Bring on the questions.
Yeah, I really like the live shows.
Yeah, no, I think it's smart. Super smart.
And I even do a show where people can call in. It's pretty wild.
No, I think it's super smart, man. I love it.
It's fun. It's crazy.
I mean, that side, I think what that last person, I mean, that's the big thing that we talk to our young people about while they're here, and what we try to provide here. It's kind of goes back to that, like, why would you come to Acton? It's providing experiences. Right. And so you're talking about coming out of college and the previous generation and not having, you're looking for, I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but I think that's it, is that we don't have enough experiences to really gain an understanding of who we are as individuals, what we're good at, what we're excited about, be able to figure out how to mash those two together. I'm really good at this. I'm also really excited about this. And if I can create a life around those things, then that's great. But you're not going to find that out until you have experiences. We talk to the kids about, the adage of ready, aim, fire, and we think that's bullshit. It's flip it around. It's fire, aim, ready. Do something. Go do many things. Go do many things down all kinds of paths. And then once you do that, let those experiences then go, okay, well, I really hated this, and I was really, maybe like just really naturally bad at it, but God, I saw my genius is kind of over here. Cool. I'm going to kind of go down these 2 or 3 paths. Now you fire first. That allows you to aim to eventually ultimately be ready. And so that, this current government schooling system that was perpetuated really all the way through college, it eliminates a lot of actual experiences for somebody to understand what life's about or what they're about, how to mix those two together. We confuse the experience of going to a prom and getting hammered and sleeping with somebody. I mean, like, I want my kid to have the normal high school experience. What does that mean? Right? What do you really want them to have? They need real life experiences. Starting a business is a real life experience. Taking on responsibility and having to clean up and having to fire another student. That's a real life experience. We had students fire some students a couple weeks ago. That means the students no longer go here, and I gave the parents refunds. That's a real life experience. That's a real experience, right? And that human who has gone through that at an early age, who is now going on to lead a family or to lead a company and lead an organization, they have a different, a different modality that they're working out of than their other people.
Can you share anything about the firing story? Without, I don't want to ask and do anything to betray anyone.
It happens every year. So, I mean, I can speak enough in generalities for people to understand what we're talking about. So students on this campus, much like we have our rules at home, right? And everybody's allowed to hold each other accountable to those rules, the non-negotiables for who we are just as a family, and kind of our code that we live by. The studios on campus will create their code as well. Every year, the students will create their code. This is what our non-negotiables are here. We're going to operate in this fashion, and we all sign it to be there. There's a whole signing ceremony. They sign it saying, look, this is, we have agreed. We've come to this code together. It gives them something tangible to go back and have conversations around too. So they can go, hey, it doesn't matter if you're 5, you're 12, you're 18. You go, look, hey, Jimmy, the code says this. You're currently doing this, so I'm going to need you to provide solution, right? Here's what you're doing. This is how it violates this. I'm going to need you to do this. Here's the solution for it. How can we help you get there, right? It allows for those tangible conversations around that. If somebody does not want to, somebody in that studio has signed that code and does and continues down, we've got multiple systems in place for this to play out. But ultimately what happens is if they are continuing to violate that code, and all the systems have been played out where the students have said, hey, look, the penalty for this code violation is this. Penalty for this code violation is this. They continue down that road. The students have the ability to get rid of them.
So let's say one of the codes was you're not going to vandalize the school. And I'm in the shitter and I write Sevan loves Kathy on the bathroom door. Cool. And then they're like, dude, Sevan, you can't write. I know you like Kathy. It's cool, and I know that you probably weren't thinking you were doing ready, aim, fire. But you got to go in there and you don't do that again. And you got to go in there and clean now the whole bathroom.
Yep.
And you have to apologize to the students for, then you got to say in front of the whole school, I'm sorry, this stall is going to be closed for 2 hours because I wrote in the stall today and the paint needs to dry. And I apologize for inconvenience. You guys got to take a shit down there.
Cool. Yep.
And then I do that.
Yep. Totally.
Would that be an example of?
So that's absolutely it. And that's exactly that. We want the students to take the ownership of going, hey, look, here's what you did. We're going to cut that down. Here's the solution. And so that can be like, yeah, cool. We're going to take care of that. If Sevan goes, no, I'm not going to clean that. Well, now we've got a very clear violation. This is a choice. This isn't a mistake. This is a choice, right? Because you're saying, no, I'm not going to clean that. And then depending on the violation.
And kids do that? Kids do that?
Oh, 100%. 100%. So depending on the violation.
I can't imagine doing that as a kid.
I go, hey, look, and that's the earlier we have the.
I could write in the stall, but once I got caught, I would own up to that shit.
Oh, dude, but it's the earlier we have the young people, the better too. If somebody comes in at 12, 13, 14, and they've been in traditional conventional schools prior to that, the chances of them wanting to call that out and having the self-confidence to call somebody else out on that and hold that line and not feel weird about it, right? It's something they've been trained like, then I'm not going to be the cool kid. I'm not going to be, it's a whole different scenario from their head. So it's much harder to come in later in life into this and just feel comfortable with doing that. But our younger kids will just be like, hey man, you can't do that. And then they'll, oh yeah, you're right. Okay, sorry. I mean, you get more of that than anything else. But if Sevan says, no, man, I'm not going to do that. Well, then there's a whole process of, okay, cool. We're going to, pull this kind of, we have like an internal monetary system that goes for, you do the work, you get paid for the work, but there's also a social component to it where it allows for those tangible conversations where I can go, okay, Sevan, I'm going to need to pull some of these lion bucks, kind of for you. And then if you disagree with me doing that, you have a whole appeal process that goes to a jury of your peers. Like there's all of these systems in place to allow them to have real adult conversations. Ultimately up into if Sevan continuously just says he's clearly showing he does not want to be here, then the students have every right to, they've documented the process of him continuously violating that contract. And we're going to have to let you go. And they'll write an email to the families too and just say, hey, we want that young person who's messing up to take ownership, have to let his family know what he's doing as well. That's part of that process going on. But if he continues to do it, the young people will write it and go, hey man, dear Mr. and Mrs. Matosian, really sorry to inform you, this is something that's going on. Sevan has chosen this, so we're going to let him go. We really, wish him the best on his hero's journey, and we're going to let him go. And then they will have the face-to-face conversation with Sevan, and they'll let him go, and then they'll alert me, and I'll refund the family.
Has a teacher ever been let go?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yep.
They just don't become a fit.
It's just not a fit. And again, there's no judgment on that, right? There's no negative vibe on that. There's no, your journey is different than the journey we're all on here.
Wow. When I hear you talk about your school, I'm like, I have a, I hear you do. I watched your TED Talk from 2015. I've seen you talk about it a few other times, but the TEDx Talk was the one I watched last night. And I'm cruising along. I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is cool. And the second you say, and the kids can fire the teacher, and then it flashes to that picture of everyone sitting in a room, kind of like in a discussion. I have a visceral reaction to it.
Yeah.
I have like a minor violent reaction to it.
Yeah.
And you warn people before, like, and I don't know why. I'm not like some defender of teachers or some shit.
Sure.
I just something about it just rocked me. I'm like, no, you can't do that. You can't fire the teachers. Like I have this.
Well, and
I'm disturbed by it.
Yeah. Well, and it's like any other. So if we look at it from like an organizational standpoint, right? I can't just go, you don't just go fire somebody because you're like, shit, you had a red shirt on today. I don't like red shirts. See you later. Right. You can't just do that. Right. Because then you're going to have all kinds of issues. Same thing. Students aren't just like, they always listen to shitty music when they drive in. So we're going to let them go. There's a very clear code, a very clear contract that it's a contract of promises that our guides have made the young heroes too, right? And so they all work together when they're creating these contracts. This is how the studio is going to operate. As a guide, my promises to you on your hero's journey are going to be this. I'm going to be able to hand over responsibility. I promise I'm not going to ask questions. I'm only going to speak with growth mindset. I'm not going to be sarcastic and antagonistic. I'm not going to, have any, like, we have all these contracts in this code too, and that guide will sign that and go, look, here's my promises too. So they can't just, if they're going to let a guide go, it's going to be because there was a violation of those principles that they've agreed to, right? There's a clear violation.
I could never be a guide if that was one of the principles. Can't be sarcastic. And what was the other thing? Antagonistic.
Yeah.
That's one of my core characteristics.
For sure. Totally get it, man.
That's okay. I can still send a kid to this school. I just can't be a guide.
And so it's being a guide is so freaking hard. It's so much harder than being a teacher.
Yeah.
It's so much harder because ultimately you have to teachers. It's about here is me and my infinite wisdom. And here is what I am going to teach you. I am going to make you learn this, and then you're going to respond back to me with what the words that I said earlier, and that's how we know that you have listened to me and taken my knowledge and passed it on, right? Whereas we're going, we're going to question you. We're going to allow you to ask questions. We're never going to answer your questions. We're going to question you back. We're going to allow you to just kind of explore. We're going to point your eyes to a horizon. We're going to say, where do you want to go? What do you want to learn? We're going to open doors. We're going to ask if you want to go, through those doors. And we're going to kind of be this whole, do this whole psychoanalysis the whole time. Because, if I ask this question, how is Sevan going to react? But if I ask this question while he's working in a group with Matt too, what are they going to do together? How do they interact together? And then, okay, well, if we bring Josh, over here too, and we know how he is. So that, it's a vastly different thing. And you ultimately have to make it not about yourself, because you're asking all these questions and then going, okay, cool. And then what systems do I need to make sure are in place so that they don't even know I'm here? Like, how do I become super invisible, but they still go off and kick ass and grow at, the fastest rate possible? That's so hard. Such a different mindset.
How many of these schools are there in the United States?
In the US, we're coming up on about 100, and I think we're about 175-ish, maybe. We're looking about 300 globally. And when I say 300 globally, that doesn't mean all 300 have, a full-on built out 150, 200 students like this. Some of them do. And then some are just starting up and maybe intentionally starting with just 4 and 5-year-olds, right? Because remember what I was like, you bring in a high school student that's gone to school forever. Yeah. Good luck. Like, ridiculously hard. So they're starting with 4 and 5-year-olds, and then the next year they're going to just let that grow organically, right? So we have some that are just starting like with an elementary, and they're just going to grow organically from there. But yeah, so we got about 300 globally, 175, I think, ish US.
Have you had people move into the area just to go to the school?
All the time.
I'm going to move. Yeah, what? All the time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. Because it's definitely something. It's definitely something like I would move. I would move anywhere for my kids, I think.
Yep. Yeah,
I'm just totally. I don't really know. It's funny that you say that. Shoot. What did you say? Shoot, aim, fire, or fire, aim, shoot.
Yeah, it's not ready. It's not ready, aim, fire. It's fire, aim, ready. Right.
Fire, aim, ready. Yeah, that's kind of how I am with my parenting. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I'm firing. Like, I don't know why I keep them busy from morning to night, even if their free time is them keeping busy too. And I don't know exactly what the end goal is, but I definitely know what they shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, that overanalysis paralysis is a killer, man.
That's right. Yeah, I definitely know what they.
Yeah.
So I definitely know at 3:00 in the afternoon when they say, "Hey, can we watch TV?" Which they really don't do
anymore.
But
probably.
Like,
yeah, exactly.
There's no matter how tired I am, no matter what, there's no giving into that. Like, I have my non-negotiables. Yep. Like what? The sun's out. Shut the fuck up. Get out of here. Go outside.
Yep, totally. Yeah, no, we've had people move quite a bit, and which is awesome, and that's a huge compliment. And I also want to, obviously get to the point where we don't have to have anybody move anywhere because there's something that's near them where they are.
Yeah. Is there one in Santa Cruz?
I believe there might be a group getting ready to get up and running. I know we had a guy that was looking a while ago. He ended up not being he was kind of in it for the wrong reasons. I would have to double check and see if there's anybody that's getting something up and running in Santa Cruz. We got a couple that have come up in the Bay Area, for sure.
What are the wrong reasons? You want to make money?
Yeah, good luck. I mean, really, honestly, I guess it's a hard business to make money in. And if that's really what you're in it for, yeah, good. Good luck. I mean, mostly, the right people, the ones that we found and pushed through, because this is hard. It's a hard bit. And I run a couple of businesses. This one is by far, there's nothing harder than this, because you're dealing with, young people are the easiest part of it. You're dealing with all the preconceived notions of parents that have grown up in traditional schooling and conventional schooling, and all of their fears and all of their, that is really hard. And then trying to find the right people, trying to find the right guides. You're in this climate of just, friggin' hot mess in California. So it's a hard deal. So somebody's got to have that really strong why. And most likely that's usually going to be because they need something for their kids. They want something different.
do most of the do most of the people who start the school, they start it because they have kids and
Almost
they want.
always. Yep.
Okay.
Almost
Okay.
always.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mhm.
It's amazing. Because I see so many other parents, I see so many parents taking opportunities away for their kids, or
Yeah.
like they feel like a coach is being too harsh or not nice enough, and just, yeah, man, I didn't even think about that. It's not dealing with the kids that you deal with. So if you have 150 kids at a school, you're dealing with 300 parents.
And that's right. And so the hard
And
thing in
they're
trying
just emotionally biased. They're just
holy
all
moly. So that's part of
fucking
that whole filtering
a
process.
wreck.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a super big favor. I want to talk about that parenting part
Yes.
if it's okay. Can
Yeah.
I run and go pee really fast?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll go do P too.
Cool. I'm not gonna mess anything up.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is my show. No. It's a live show.
I love your stuff.
Everyone take 3. I'm like 100 and how many shows? 175 shows in. And no one's ever asked to take a pee, but I've probably taken pee in like half of those shows. Can you believe it? And finally, at show 176, a guest asked to take a pee. I can't believe how perfect that is. Hope you guys are enjoying this. I wish this guy had one of these schools near me. I would consider sending my kids to school there. It sounds awesome. It's amazing how much kids can just learn on their own. You just bring them, not necessarily on their own. I don't mean in a vacuum. Obviously, none of us learn in a vacuum. But you get them in front of the right instructor, not the right instructor, the right situation, the right environment, and they're going to flourish. I take my kids to so many teachers. Now they've learned how to become teachers. Taking them in front of so many instructors, they've learned how to become instructors. Let's all take a whiz. Good idea, Steve. Do these kids CrossFit? If so, how has that been beneficial to the process? That's a great question. I mean, clearly this guy's in shape. And I've heard him talk on Mark Bell's podcast that he puts a premium on staying fit. I think he does something every single day. And he's extremely disciplined. Doesn't fool around. I wonder what his other businesses are. Okay, I'm going to ask him that question. What are his other businesses? And then we were saying, and then what about, parents being emotional, the 300 parents for the 150 kids. We'll do that. And then I got to go take my kids to play tennis. I should ask my wife. Should I call my wife right now, live on the show? Let's see. Haley. Bam. She's in the room next door. Maybe she's not going to answer. Text her.
Hello, you reached Haley.
Damn. I'll just text her. It rained here today. First rain of the year in California, in Santa Cruz. Tennis and 15. I think they canceled my Sogo. I used to have this Sogo Snacks discount code. Did you guys know that? You could go to Sogo Snacks and type in 3 Plain Brothers and you got 10% off. He was actually going to give me the money for sending people there, but I told him just use it to give the people who buy it the discount. but I don't know if he does that anymore. I think that guy, I just ordered some. I need to order some more, but I think that guy got I think that guy had a supply chain issue getting his meat. He was getting his grass-fed meat from New Zealand. Hey, Matthew.
Yes, sir.
I'm 170, so I'm racing to 500 shows. I'm doing at least one show a day, sometimes 2 shows a day.
Nice.
And I'm at show 176, and I've taken a pee break in at least half of those shows. And you're my first guest. You're my first guest who's taken a pee break. I'm really impressed. That's that must be your assertive training, and I'm sure others have wanted to say it. They just haven't had the assertiveness, the integrity.
I maybe that's what it is, or maybe it was just actually getting painful enough to where I was like, hey, man, I got to rock and roll. Cause I think it was somewhere around the Polish Jew where I started going, this is all right. Now it's getting, no. So,
oh, good.
Good. No, it's funny, man. I actually have a bunch of I wish I didn't, but I have a bunch of really good pee stories. Yeah, no, you were talking about
300 emotional parents.
Yes, all of those
emotional bias to 150 kids.
So that is, I think currently that's our biggest chart is I'm looking at running these campuses, and ultimately everything I do is a microcosm of what we're doing on campus too. I want the campuses, and they really can. I want them to run without me having to be a part of that. Not that I don't want to be a part of it, because I love being here. I bring my kids here every day and I get to hang out here. Like I get to be here. It's fantastic, but they don't need me to run. But my biggest point of influence currently is working with the parents. So it's both on that filtering up front of just trying to give that context up front for those parents going, hey, you are going to need to allow this hero's journey to take place. Everybody loves the hero's journey archetype, and they love the whole, you got to battle the dragons, but you overcome and you come out the other side and you're the stronger. Everybody loves that until it's their kid who's having to battle that dragon. And then you don't love it anymore. Then it's scary. Then you want to jump in and go, well, this is why my kid is different. And this is why, right? Everybody wants to do that. So I'm trying to front load as much of that as possible up front. And then once we do that, and I just, it's part of the reasons you probably shouldn't be here, because you probably do want a helicopter. You probably do want to, people get past that part. Then I try to pour into the parents as much as I can. So like we will do weekly, I have so many parents who are entrepreneurs here on campus. And so I'll do weekly mastermind meetings where I'll bring all these entrepreneurial parents in, and we'll just have discussions about their business and what they're doing. And I try to pour into that and help them in that regard. Nothing to do with their kids, because I know if I'm pouring into them and making sure they're on their own journey, then it's more likely that not only are they going to lead by example at home, and that's going to ultimately trickle down into their young people, but they're more likely to understand their child also on his or her own journey. Right. So I'm trying to pour into the parents that way. Even doing all those things proactively, you still get some of those parents. So I try very, very hard. We had a parent, great guy, email a bunch of questions this weekend, and I just respond back, same kind of thing. Here's a bunch of questions in return. Are you trying this? Have you done this? Have you thought about this? What do you think about this? And I tend to not get as many responses from that too. So systemically speaking, I'm trying to arm our parents as well, to where they also know every single thing that is going on, because they should have those conversations with their kids, but it's not because they've had to come ask the guide or come ask me or come worry about this. Is because their relationship with their young hero is so solid that they know everything that is going on.
What do you think about that program, Outward Bounds?
I don't know a ton about it, but I mean, it sounds, from what I understand, it sounds like a pretty cool sort of deal. And actually the guy that I think was going to start something in Santa Cruz, I feel like he came out of that program, to tell you the truth.
My friends when I was younger who went on that program, it really affected them.
Yeah. In a good way.
In a great way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's experience.
If easy for me to say now, but if I had a 17, if God forbid one of my boys is 17 years old and he gets into heroin, I would just kidnap him and put him in a box and ship him to Africa. And I would show up there and we would live in a village for 3 months with nothing, naked amongst the people, and till he woke the fuck up.
Yep.
I don't know what the program is, but for those of you who have kids and you want to change them, I'm sure there are programs out there. I don't know what they are, but there are programs like Outward Bounds that will unfuck your kids. But you have to let them go and let that happen. There's an incredible movie of these inner city kids from Baltimore who were sent to Africa, and they basically it's not the Lost Boys of Sudan. It's something like that. I want to say it won the Academy Award. But basically, they were sent to Kenya and they lived in a village with no electricity, no running water, no cell phone service. And they were there for like 3 months. And after 3 months of being there, they didn't want to come back to Baltimore, to the inner city. Not a single one of them wanted to go.
Yep.
And after 3 months, none of them wanted to come back.
Yep.
And what was crazy is all their ghetto slang and all that shit was gone.
Yep. Yep.
It left their fucking vernacular. It was it's the most amazing fucking movie.
Perspective, dude. And that shows.
But this kid who's, sorry, Matt, this kid who's 15 years old, who's in introverted 13. I want to be really nice to you, Leslie or Lindsay or whatever your name was. It's got to be your fault. Oh, The Boys of Baraka. Thank you, Garrick. Yes. Okay. The Boys of Baraka. Crazy movie.
I'll have to look that up.
The Boys of Baraka. Yes.
Boys of Baraka. Yeah, dude. I mean, talk about just a straight up perspective shifter, man. I mean, that's all it is perspective shifting. You know, we had Leif Babin. Jocko Willink, right?
I know of him. I just know him from like Instagram. He's the guy who posts like I woke up at 4:30 in the morning. Watch every day.
Yeah, exactly. So he and Leif.
I'm so envious of that. Like, how the fuck do you have 1 million followers and you just post your fucking watch?
He just what
am I doing wrong?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you might need to get a different watch. Yeah, and I mean, these guys are, obviously former SEALs and their leadership mentality and all the things they're doing in leadership with Echelon Front. Their company is doing some really, really, really great things, and they're leading by example. They're brilliant. They are brilliant guys, not just badass dudes and SEALs, but just brilliant guys in general. And so he and Leif Babin worked together, and Leif came on the Essential 11 last week and was with some of our Apogee boys. And he was talking about perspective and talking about, thinking about what hard really looks like, and talking about how we don't necessarily, there's not a whole lot of hard things actually in this country a lot of times. And your perspective is skewed on that. And when somebody says something's hard, it's hard in perspective, in respect to what. And he was giving an example of being in buds and going out to surf torture. And he's talking about, you can always tell who is going to be, who's going to make it through. And it's the mindset of, we're all dealing with this shit, but am I optimistic in the middle of the suck, even if things are going to continue to suck? Like when you asked earlier, are you optimistic? I'm very optimistic for myself and my family and my community moving forward. I am not necessarily optimistic of the country at large, but I'm optimistic in what we're going to do and whatever the hell happens, right? Because we're going to be proactive about that. And Leif said, you can, you can lay there and surf torture and everybody's freezing. He said, you can look to the left and this guy, to the left will just have the 1,000-mile stare and just be like, this sucks. And he goes, this guy's not going to make it. And you look to the right and this guy is laughing his ass off going, oh my God, this sucks. That guy's absolutely going to be fine, right? Because his perspective is different. Same situation, both saying the same damn thing, but their perspective is completely different, which is why he's going to be okay. That's what we're talking about in terms of modeling these things for our kids. And those kind of examples, you are bringing these young people out of a shitty situation to what could arguably be a worse situation, maybe. But you're looking at the perspective of all those people around going, oh man, we're actually back to the basics. It's it's simplistic. We're all happy. We're all working together. And it's a perspective shifter on what life could look like, what hard actually is. It's all of those shifts, man. And that's ultimately, as a parent, that's what we're doing for our kids with every freaking decision we're making, is giving them that perspective in a good way or a bad way.
You said something that exactly what Greg Glassman used to preach to me. For the 15 years I worked very closely with him, he said the tsunami of chronic disease is coming. And when he said the tsunami of chronic disease, and he told the world that over and over and over, and he told them the cure for it. And he also told us over and over that he has no hope or optimism for healthcare as a whole. He's basically, it's done.
Yeah.
It's completely fucked. But what
Yep.
he did have optimism for, and knew would be successful, is the people who took their health into their own hands
That
and
responsible person.
and ate basically, meat, vegetables, nuts, seeds, little starch, no sugar, his whole, and then on top of that, they did some movement.
Yep.
He knew that those people would be absolutely fine, and that these CrossFit gyms that were affiliating all over the world, if they partook in his experiment, that they would build a hedge against chronic disease and they would be fine. But
Bingo.
that there was no cure by going to the hospital. Like
Bingo.
he knew that the tsunami, and the weird part is he never predicted that it would be disguised as a virus that's killing, people who are 30 years complicit in his demise. But I mean, but it's no surprise, right? You drink Coca-Cola for the last 30 years and you smoke cigarettes, and now there's this little fucking bug going around and it's killing people, and you want to say it's the bug. It's like walking on a high wire in between two giant tall buildings and the wind blows and you blame the wind. It's like, no, dipshit. It was that you were on a high wire between two high buildings.
Anything to take responsibility and put it outwards.
Yes.
Anything to point the finger outwards, man. Anything to point the finger outwards.
Yes, it's so fucking crazy.
It's amazing, and that's how deep the conditioning goes, man. It is anything going outwards. Yeah,
but
man.
he was very optimistic, like you are, about his cohort.
Yeah, that's right.
The people in his in his group,
kind of in his circle. Yeah, I mean, because like I said, hope is not a strategy for anything.
Right?
Like it's never a strategy. So it's like, okay, cool. Well, what's next? Well, if it's next where you're gonna have to, get a jab to work or to get it and whatever. Like we're gonna go ahead and be proactive against all of this to the best of our ability. And our mindset is it's a freaking steel trap, and we're gonna just keep moving forward, man. It's that perspective.
It is weird for it is weird for me that I've been to all 7 continents. I've seen famines on 3 continents, and and been deeply integrated, filming them, and seen kids who are like dying from starvation, and then to be in the United States and hear idiots talk about food droughts and and just shit that's like just making up limitations and their excuses, and then being that I was homeless, and to hear people like it's spending tons of time in Africa and hearing people talk about Black people. They don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. Right. Even whether you're white or Black in the United States, you have no idea what you're talking about. Skin color is just nothing.
It's
just so fucking crazy to get a little perspective. Like nothing about skin color if you've never fucking spent 3 months in Africa.
That's right.
All over the continent. Shut the fuck
up.
And I don't even know where to start with these people.
It's those exposures. There's no way, there's very limited way to help, I think, because experiences are what gave you the perspective and the maturity, right? The experiences are what provided the growth. And it's the same thing as we were talking earlier about the experiences of being a parent versus I was the perfect parent before I had kids. Yes. I knew exactly what everybody should do all the fucking time, all the time. Then you have kids and you go, holy shit, way harder, also way better, right? Way harder than you thought, also way better. You have no way to really have that perspective until you have those kids. These experiences are that same thing. So until we have experiences, you're a baby, right? It's you're talking to grown adults, so we forget. It's the same thing as talking to your 4-year-old who is still refusing to go in the toilet, right? They're just like, I'm going to go over here. I really want to continue wearing diapers. I'm going to go hide in the corner and shit my pants. Like, and you're sitting there as an adult going, I'm telling you, life is better when you stop shitting in your pants. Like, I promise you it is. And to you, it's just like, oh my gosh, okay, I've got the maturity to see this. These people that have no experiences and they've grown up in this bubble and they've had these skewed perspectives, right? It's the exact same thing. They're just haven't grown into that maturity yet. They haven't had the opportunity. They're still shitting in their pants, culturally speaking or philosophically, speaking. They're still shitting their pants and they haven't gotten out of that yet.
And they want to defend it. Going back to what you said about this guy, Leif Babin and Jocko Willink or Willis? Willink. I don't know them. But I did have the honor and privilege to in the luck and the fortune, whatever, to work with a lot of people in the military and a
Yeah.
lot of SEALs.
Yep.
And one of my dear friends was a SEAL,
Yep.
and then he pushed himself further and became part of Dev Group, which SEAL Team 6.
Yep.
And I worked side by side with him in my job when I worked at CrossFit.
Yep.
And he was an extraordinary leader. And
Yeah.
I had never even thought of what leadership was. I just thought leadership was the captain of the soccer team or the guy who manages the Safeway in the corner or whatever, like the supermarket. And over the 15 years I worked with them, I really started seeing leadership, and I really started seeing professionalism. And I had never seen leadership or professionalism. I thought leadership and professionalism was like wearing a suit and being president of the United States, or wearing or what Tim Cook did, or like what Steve Jobs did. Like, I thought that was professional. Steve Jobs is a kind of a bad example because he redefined professionalism too. But I thought it was like stuffy suit shit.
Yeah.
Like being polite and nice and standing up and doing what the crowd wanted and kissing babies. And then recently, in the last 3-5 years, I've heard people criticize my friend for not being professional. He's in a very, very top executive position, forward facing in the company of CrossFit, Dave Castro. And I realized, oh shit, this is a guy like Jocko and Leif whose decisions were at the highest level of professionalism because their wrong decision in a leadership position could get them or other people killed.
Sure.
It's not that they're not being professional. It's these other fucking idiots don't recognize professionalism.
They don't know what professional is.
They think the kid with the diaper is the smart one because he doesn't have to he can just shit in his pants.
Right. Totally. That's like, exactly it. That's exactly it.
And I'm like, holy shit.
That's exactly it. That's
Dana White's another great example.
Yep. He's a genius.
It's like, dude, you are witnessing a leader and a professional.
Yep.
Just because he's not shitting in his, don't get it confused. You have it ass backwards.
That's exactly right, man. That's exactly right. That's spot on. And it's that conditioning. And that is the, hey, you guys are running an alternative. You guys are running an alternative school. I hear that all the time. That's alternative education. Don't get it twisted. This is education. School is the radical alternative. And it's been this 100-year experiment versus what we've been saying is, kind of since the dawn of humanity, how people have learned and become educated and what they've gone, the ability to go on and do great things has always looked like this. This last 100-year experiment of school is not education. Don't get it twisted, but that's where we've gone as a culture, is that is education, and anything outside of that is alternative.
Didn't Darwin and Einstein kind of had the Acton Academy experience?
Anybody that had to take on responsibility at a young age and learned from masters ahead of them, learned from coaches, and took on like an apprenticeship kind of, mind and mindset, and had a good mentor in front of them, had an Acton Academy experience. It's back to the basics, man. Back to the basics. You're capable, you're responsible, you're driving the ship. There's plenty of masters around you, and there's a community around you, and lean on them and move your ship forward because you've got things to do.
Are you making new connections every day?
Yeah, all the time. Whether it's through Acton, through Apogee, through whatever, it's all the time.
Yeah. It must be exciting.
It's the best. I mean, you genuinely, I don't think you can get into even traditional. I don't think you get into that if you don't actually enjoy people, so that selfishly is super exciting. I love this. I love getting to know, just in this past year, getting to know you, and an occasional text message or occasional phone call with you, sitting down for a couple podcasts with you. Like, that's fantastic for me. It selfishly, it enriches my life too,
Do you know the Spartan guy?
The guy that started the Spartan race?
Yeah, I think his name is Joe DeSana.
Yeah, I know who that is. I do not know him.
Met him? I think I sent you a text message a few months ago. I saw him speaking, and I thought, oh, me and Matthew and him should do a podcast, the three of us together.
I remember that. Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yep.
And then somehow I dropped the ball on that. It was an idea I had, and then I think someone put me in contact with him. I need to dig through my emails.
Very cool. Yeah, he's not somebody. He's not
I
somebody.
think he's doing cool shit.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know a ton. I don't know a ton
I
about
think
him.
he's pushing people out of their comfort zone.
Good.
And I think he's really focused on. I think he's focused on kids too. I think he has like a wrestling academy for kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think he's
Yeah.
really pushing. And then, have you ever met Greg Glassman?
I've never met Glassman. No, because he wasn't the only. I've never been to any of the larger events. He was not at the L1. I did an L1 years and years and years ago in Aromas.
Wow.
And I
What year was that?
I'm gonna go 2008, maybe. I mean, it was a while ago, and so I want to say you may have been there.
Yeah, I'm guessing I was there.
I really think you were. I think you were there. I can tell you
I went
right
to
now.
almost all of them back in the day.
Yep. I believe. No, I know for a fact. Kalipa was coaching. Was one of the coaches there. And the only other guy that I remember who was going through and getting the L1 at that time was a guy named Neil Maddox, who I know went on to be who was a beast.
He was taking the L1 with you, Neil Maddox.
He was taking the L1. Was
that's
Neil
awesome.
Maddox, yeah. I remember Freddie.
Yes.
Camacho.
Yes.
Kind of running the show. So yeah, it was back in like 2008.
Isn't it weird? I had no idea you were even had any. I didn't even know you had any. It's such a small world that these same people gravitating. These are all personal accountability people. Like the people who do CrossFit are very interested in accountability. I mean, that's basically what CrossFit is selling: accountability.
Bingo. And that's what. So when you're talking at the
such a weird product.
Isn't it? And it's kind of strange, but you're right. And so it shrinks the world down, man. We're talking about at the very beginning of some of the guests that I've been, lucky enough to, that's a common thread, right? The common thread is these are people that believe in accountability and they care about the next generation. That's it.
And if you, and that goes back to what we were saying before about independence. If you can kill your own food, and you can build your own shelter, you're, I know as silly as it sounds, especially to someone who's driving, has 3 Mercedes in the driveway and has a job that pays $400,000 a year. But if that were to vanish, which it could vanish overnight, don't think it couldn't. Hopefully it doesn't for you. Right. But your ability to get protection from the elements and catch a deer that runs through your yard.
That's right.
Pretty fucking important. I don't think the total side subject. I don't think the new owners would know who bought CrossFit Inc. from Greg. I don't think that they know that that's what they're selling.
Totally different game. So I've been out of the game. I haven't really followed. So I know there's a guy named Eric running the show. I don't know much about him.
It's a trip. It's a trip. I think they bought Harley Davidson, but they really bought the Hells Angels.
Yep. Got it.
I think they bought a motorcycle manufacturing plant and they bought a group of guys with the same, with a, anyway, it's going to be very, very, it was, it's going to be very, it's an interesting thing to watch. Can you take something that was basically a movement and turn it into a business? And the only reason why Greg even got into activism is because these fuckers in pharma and in sugar were in big food were basically perverting the health sciences. They were saying stuff that wasn't true about fitness and food. So he had to kind of like push back.
As he should.
Yeah.
As he should have. Yeah. That's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. How do you keep that? If you got a bunch of Hell's Angels who want that culture to remain, it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. Yeah, I don't know. And that's the danger, man. That's the danger of this. I mean, you're absolutely right. And that's what I don't want to, I would never want to pervert on our side, is the continuous, like this is ultimately it's very much a movement. It's very much a building the bigger building versus trying to tear the other one down. It's a different kind of thing. And the threat of becoming corporatized, is the threat of essentially setting ourselves up to become exactly what public government schooling has become, right? And I want to avoid that at all costs, man.
I'll give you a perfect example. Greg's running 15,000 an organization that's sort of at the top of the pyramid of 15,000 gyms worldwide, right? Mm-hmm. And he does everything in his power never to fucking take the money and endorse a protein powder.
Yeah.
Never to endorse a vitamin, never to endorse like a shoe, never to like, but the problem is that then the second he's gone,
That's
that structure is set up there to fucking take advantage of all of those people in that structure, when the whole premise of that, do you get what I'm saying? And that's what's basically happening. These people all these people are like, oh my God, Greg's leaving so much money on the table, he's a fucking idiot. Well, that's because they were coming with the presupposition that was his goal.
And that's exactly right.
Because that's the way the world thinks.
Yep.
And so now it's basically like, imagine if we built like the most amazing, cleanest water network system in the entire world, and we collected all the water in Roseville, California, and it went all over the planet with perfectly clean water, and everyone was happy. And then we died, and someone put a droplet of poison in the water in Roseville.
Yep.
And it spread to and this thing that was for the better good of the world, and now killed everyone because they went to our one source and poisoned. And that's the scary part.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I fully get that. And that's, parents, when parents are like, oh, what's the, what is the curriculum, right? What is the curriculum? I hate that word. And so they're always looking for a set of like, well, we use, coming from this producer curriculum, or this, publisher, or this, whatever. And we always just tell them it's, well, whatever makes sense at the time. Right. Like there's no loyalty to a specific, if Khan Academy is a great free resource and we're able to use it, awesome. If there's something all of a sudden Khan becomes irrelevant, or Khan becomes this political whatever that's no longer about education, and something else comes along that's better, like we'll shift, we'll use that. Like there's no loyalty to the tools. The loyalty is to the promises to those heroes. Like that's where the loyalty is. So if all of a sudden, this friggin' iPhone that we've got here becomes as relevant as a pager, and something else becomes more relevant and easier to use and better for us, and there's great, like we can adapt, we can shift, right? It's that same kind of thing. Like we're not gonna sell your soul, because you end up losing the integrity of the mission.
So someone believes they know what school is, and they come to you and they say, okay, what is the curriculum, right? Then that they're, because that's something I would probably say to you. Yeah. And so they're coming at you with this paradigm of thought that they believe that there's going to be this layout from when the kid's 5 to when he's 17. Can I see that layout? So what should they ask you?
They should ask more about really it's more about the mindset of what can I do? How do I support my young hero? Like, it's really that, like, how do I support them? If parents are saying, how do I support them on that journey? What does that look like? And we can talk about what that support looks like at home. And we can talk about how to listen to that young person, how to set the examples for that, all the stuff that we've been talking about. I mean, those are better questions, because then they're just saying they want to get to know who that young person is and what that young person is capable of doing. Like, how do I unlock the genius that is inside there? Because the reality is, John Taylor Gatto says genius is as common as dirt. And we fully actually believe that. But the genius looks different from person to person, right?
Then so how do you cultivate? Would a fair question be, is like, okay, I want to send my kid to your school, Matthew. Yep. What is the process of cultivating his genius, exposing his genius?
Yeah, well, the problem that most people have is that it's a long tail game, right? They want to go, what is that? And how are you going to show me in 6 weeks? Right? It's like fitness. It's like fitness. How are you going to show me in 6 weeks that I'm the fittest I've ever been, and I'm completely ripped, and I'm ready to go, and I'm perpetually healthy? When the reality is that's a long tail game, and that game doesn't end. If you want to stay healthy, it is a consistency that does not stop. You don't get to stop being healthy at 49 because you were healthy from 20 to 30, to 48. And so it's that kind of mindset is what we're looking for in them, understanding, look, this is a long tail game. We're only going to have them for a certain amount of time, but we're setting this foundation. So during that foundation, it is literally just going to be massive amounts of exposure to different things, massive amounts of experiences, massive amounts of responsibility. That's it. It's high expectations. We're going to put those things in front of them. We're going to give them those high expectations, and we're going to give them the mindset to go after it. Have you ever seen and I know that sounds, it's hard because people are like, okay, give me the step, give me A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
Right? That's what everybody wants.
Are you going to give them a saw and a piece of wood and tell them to go build a birdhouse?
Sure.
Like
That's
they want to
absolutely
know. Yes, I want to
That's
know. You're right.
yes.
Like I want to know.
And so when people are like, yes, are you going to do that? Yes. Are they going to be able to code? Yes. Are they going to be able to look? It is literally, it's life. If you have the ability to do it in life, well, then we have the ability to work it in here. We are going to essentially a buffet restaurant, right? Where we're like, look, here is the buffet. All we are asking in this buffet is that you are going to try a number of foods in every single category. And we want you to try as many foods as possible. And in terms of a measurement, where we're going to ask you to spend X amount of money, right? So for these kids, it's X amount of hours of actually doing certain amount of work that they can show that they've done, whether that's reading, books out of pages out of a book, whether that's taking a specific kind of math course, whether that's starting this business, whether that's all of the above, mix and match, right? So they got to spend X amount of money trying X amount of foods in all of these categories. And then the longer you do that, then you start to hone it down and you go, okay, I don't like seafood at all. So I'm going to take that off, but I know because I've been exposed to it a bunch. So I'm going to take seafood off. I'm still going to spend the same amount of money, but now I'm going to be able to narrow the field, right? But you're having more and more foods that you're trying. You cannot possibly ever pick out your favorite food unless you have tried a shit ton of food. And so we're doing the same thing with them. Like we're just exposure, experience, so that then they can start to go, okay, now I have confidence because I've actually done some shit. All of this exposure and the experiences that we put together, every 6 weeks, we're doing an exhibition on this campus, an exhibition of the work. And they've got things that they're going to do and they're going to produce. It's a tournament, right? It's their jiu-jitsu tournament. They're going to do this in front of parents. They're going to succeed or they're going to fail, and they're going to do it publicly. And then they're going to learn from that. And they're going to come back and they're going to do it again. They're going to be exposed to new things, and they're going to take on their individual things, and they're going to look through this buffet of courses or projects, or they get to create their own, because if it's related to anything they want, like they have all of these things they can do, and they're just going to do that every year over and over and over again with all these systems of character control in place, right? Maintaining high level of responsibility and character for themselves, holding their friends accountable to that too. And they're going to do it for as long as they're with us. And then when they leave, they got to keep doing it because they're still alive. Like they just keep going.
Right. And they know they can.
And they know they can. Yep.
They know they can.
It's just, if you set and so our job then becomes to just set the environment in the right way so that those things continue to grow. If you're growing the flower, you fix the environment. You don't fucking beat on the flower to make it grow better. You fix the environment, you fix the soil, you make sure there's sunlight. So our job as the guides is to consistently just be this environment that allows that to just continuously grow. It's exactly that. Have you ever seen the School in a Cloud, Sugata Mitra TEDx talk?
No.
TED talk? You got to check that out.
School in a Cloud?
School in a Cloud. Yeah, it's an older TED talk. Gosh, might be from like 2009, 2010. I'm not sure exactly when it was. But
do you get nervous to do those?
To do what?
TED Talks? When you do them, do you get scared?
Not anymore.
Oh.
Not anymore. It's not anymore. Now it's,
I would be so scared.
Until you did it 500 times.
Oh yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? It's that. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And now it's just exciting. Now it's one of the only, it's one of the only things I know I'm really good at. It would be if I had to go to if I had to go to a CrossFit competition, I'd be nervous because I know that there's a lot of things that I'm not super good at, and there's going to be some guys that are better, and I'm going to get crushed in some of it. I'm going to feel like that would be more nerve-wracking for sure.
So, sorry, 2009 School in the Cloud. I chopped you off.
So no, you're good. Sugata Mitra. And so this guy had this experiment, and he went and obviously the TED Talk will do it far more justice than me talking about the talk. But he went and they did this experiment where they dropped I don't remember what country it was. It was a impoverished nation, third world country. They went and dropped essentially a kiosk that had a computer on it that had access to the internet. Kids had never seen a computer. They'd never seen internet. They dropped this and they had cameras on there, and then they just left it alone. And they said, see you later. The amount of time it took for all these young kids that were 7, 8 years old to come in and to figure out how to utilize that, to figure out how to bring music to it and how to record themselves, right? Singing along, and all this. It was amazing. And they were doing it in not even in their particular language, right? And they were learning this other language. They did this. There was no adult there. It was just the impetus of the young people, the excitement of these young people to go take on this challenge and go, what the hell is this? And to go explore. And then what they were able to do was ridiculous. So we tried to repeat the concept, brought it in. It was only going to be, the program was only in English. The computer only had access to English, and it was only like a biology, like a college level biology course. And these were a bunch of kids who didn't speak English from a third world nation, who were all, like 12 years old, right? They go through, they take this biology course in English and are able to pass a college level examination afterwards in English, purely because of how excited they were to just have the opportunity to take this on. If that doesn't talk to you about our default mindset, nothing will. That is our default. Parenting can rip us out of that. School can rip us out of that. Culture can rip us out of that. Our job as parents and educators is to pull people back to those default settings as quickly as humanly possible.
I truly, I say to you, unless you turn and become like children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:1. 170 shows in, first time I've ever quoted the Bible on the show. I remember hearing that as a child. When you hear things that are true, and I'm not even a religious guy at all, you're just like, that one's true.
Yep.
I don't know what heaven is. I don't know what children is, but I know that whatever the fuck that just said.
Yes. Yep. That's it, man. It's getting back to that basic default setting.
No wonder you love going to work every day.
Dude, it's the best. It is the best.
You are now officially my longest podcast in the history of podcasting.
Dude, 1 out of 170. I will take it, man. Or 176, you said.
Yeah, 176.
Yes.
Thank you so much, brother, for your time.
Dude, anytime. Anytime I get to connect with you is good for me, whether it's publicly, privately, doesn't matter. I appreciate you. I appreciate your voice so much, man. And I always learn so much from you too. And so, it's all same team, man. So pleasure's mine.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to, there's his Instagram down on the bottom, or DM me and I will get you in touch or send you the links to the Acton Academy, the schools and everything that Matthew's doing. And make sure you check out his podcast, The Essential 11. The guests on there are just crazy.
Including you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. True story.